Well, good morning, everybody. I hope we are well. Merry Christmas to you all for those that celebrate, and for those that don't. Good morning. I hope you've had a nice break from the norm. And also for those that partake in Boxing Day, happy Boxing Day. And if you don't, happy 26th of December, I guess. Good morning, Malky. Good morning, Jave. Good morning, Iceman. Good morning, Eamon. Nice to see you all. So we are here today in the PMDG 737 in Microsoft Flight Sim 2024. We are sitting on stand 203 at Edinburgh, and we are going to do a flight down to Gatwick for a shortish hop. It's about, I think, 1 hour 13 in the air, something like that. 1 hour 18 in the air, there or thereabouts. And we're going to go through a bit of a tutorial on how to use this. A few people in Two-Toe Murphy's community and so on have asked for a bit of a tutorial, and I did one of these. It was over a year ago now. It was back in sort of October, November time, 2024. Good grief! That I started doing a tutorial series on the 737. And let's say it was quite detailed. The first session was 2.5 hours, and we got to the point where we were starting to set up the FMC. I think we got about halfway through setting up the FMC. It went into a lot of detail on cold and dark startup and literally sort of airline procedure checklists and things like that. With that said, I will just add in, you can see the banner at the bottom of the screen there. I'm not a 737 pilot. I am just a a nerd who has studied details very fully on the 737 and know probably just enough to be dangerous in terms of how the procedures and checklists and things work. Not everything is going to be correct. I'm not going to have answers for everything. So yeah, don't use this for real world aviation, but I will do my best. So yeah, first a couple of sessions were on getting everything set up. Unfortunately, the second one, the first one is on my YouTube channel. An enthusiastic simmer. Yes, Malky, that is exactly it. I'm an enthusiastic simmer. I like that one. I might add that to my bio. I'm going to steal that. So yes, the first video is on my YouTube channel. The second one, unfortunately, due to user error, mainly me being an idiot and forgetting to download it off Twitch after I'd streamed it, got lost. Twitch only keeps them for 7 days, and then I didn't download it, therefore couldn't upload it to my YouTube. So apologies for the second one being missing. The aim of today's will probably be about a 3-hour stream, something along those lines. We will go through this flight from Edinburgh down to Gatwick. We will go through the sort of procedures and step by step and how to set up the plane, pretty much from cold and dark through to cruise. We'll go into a bit of theory. We're not going to go into as much detail as I did on the first ones because we'd never get there. It's enough. The aim of this tutorial is it's enough to get you guys up and flying and utilizing this plane in a pretty close manner to how they do in real world ops. Again, as I said, I'm not going to know everything. Any questions you have, any comments, thoughts, anything like that, put it in the chat. We'll talk through it as we're going along. If I don't have an answer, I will go and find an answer for you and get back to you through the Discords or another stream or something like that. But we'll make sure we get any information that I don't have answers to back to you. So, with that said, my banner up the top is looking rather healthy, isn't it? So let's try and fix that, shall we? We are going from Edinburgh, we are going to Gatwick, and we are FFA 301. Okay, that's fixed some of it. The model of the aircraft is not picking up particularly well, and I can't change that on this thing. So you'll just have to put up with the weird text of atcom.ac_model there. Apologies for that. I'll try and fix that for the next stream. So, as I said, we are on stand 203 at Edinburgh, and we are going to head down to Gatwick. Just as a couple of bits of information, the guide that I am using, or not the guide, the checklist that I am using is this one here. So it's offlightsim.to. It's a PMDG guide, checklist and procedures written by JD. JD does an incredible job with checklists, has many checklists. In fact, if I go to JD's profile, go into collections, and if we have a quick look at the checklists that we've got here, so many Bonanzas, Avros, ATRs, A350s I know are in there. I use his for those. Cessnas, Beach, A320, Phoenix, etc. are all there, and they are incredibly comprehensive. And not only are they the checklists, they are how to actually go and utilize this plane. So you can see here he's got my recommended settings in the FMC. So as we go into the details of what options are in the plane and everything like that, and literally which buttons to click, as well as the then checklists that you would read out in real world ops. So this is your pre-flight checklist here. So you would say oxygen, and then the co-pilot, if there is one, would respond back with obviously tested 100%, navigation transfer and display switches, etc., etc. So those are the things that's the actual checklist. These are the buttons and everything that you need to press to make this work. So it's a really good, helpful reminder of how all of this works and the tutorial that I'm going to take you through. And as you go through more and more, you don't really need to look at these because you get used to actually putting it all into the system, and you can just literally go to these grey boxes. This one is here, and in fact I will link this into the chat so everybody can go and grab it. His more recent checklists, if you are going to grab any of the others, just as good, but he has started. So this one, if you download it, this one's quite an old one. It says not 2024, but he's just obviously not updated that yet. But it still all applies. There's very little change in the way the 2024 version works versus the 2020 version from PMDG in terms of the actual systems and buttons you need to click for obvious reasons. His more recent ones, he's only this is you download that as a PDF. His more recent ones are only image files, so they are JPEGs versus PDFs. He started charging for the high quality PDF ones just simply because of the amount of time that it takes to actually produce these. And you can buy them off his website. If you join his Discord, you can actually go and they're like €2 a checklist. Basically, it's not a huge amount of money or anything. The image versions are perfectly good if you're going to use them just on your screen. Superb. No need to have anything different. But if you print them, like I do, I print them and laminate all of my checklists, then the PDF ones are just slightly better. So that's the checklist we'll be running through and using today. So close those down. That is our Simbury fruit, so we'll get rid of that for the minute. So let us jump into the plane using lovely Chase plane here to give us some cinematics. So here we are in the plane. The state that I have this plane in is what I'm calling a turnaround state, effectively. So this is a custom save state that I put together with the help of a couple of different YouTubers in terms of their operators, what state they leave it in, basically on a turnaround. A lot of the time, it's quite rare you would start this up completely from cold and dark. If you're a pilot coming in, it's usually done a leg before. Okay, if it's the first leg of the day, maybe it is cold and dark, but at the same time, you've often got ground crew who will come in and switch the batteries on and maybe switch the IRSs on and start them aligning and things like that. Depending on the airline, depending on where the plane is and things, but I would say it's probably a bit of a rarity that you do a full cold and dark. So we've got this in a turnaround state effectively. So it's just come in, it's landed, all the passengers are getting off, new crew coming in, new pilot. And we're now sort of entering this cabin as if it was in this sort of just landed state effectively. If, by the way, at any point any audio is weird, if my voice is too loud, too soft, game audio is anyway wrong, just let me know. Just say in the chat, and I can adjust that on here. It's been quite a while since I last streamed. Nothing should have changed, but who knows? OBS can be weird. So we are in the plane here. We're going to run through the full checklists, obviously. But I just thought I would let you know this particular state, and I'll probably do a bit of a quick video on YouTube at some point of where all the switches and everything should be in terms of their state, and then you can save your own profile. Audio fine for me. Thank you, Iceman. That is perfect. So let's jump back into the captain's seat. And you will see, if we have a look, in fact, actually, if we have a look at the overhead panel here, so you will see we've got a number of functions switched off, some switched on as well. In fact, actually, probably those need to be off. I might change that in my profile, actually. And I'll explain why on that in a minute. If we go up here, we can see that the IRSs are off. Generally, in a turnaround, they would probably be left on, just because there's no real point in turning them off during a turnaround. However, the PMDG doesn't, if you're loading in for, I'm assuming, technical reasons, it won't save the IRSs in any other state other than off. So you can have them set to nav, save your state, and when you come back, they will still be off because it needs to do its alignment thing and stuff like that. So they will be off regardless of what you've saved. So we will start then with the checklists. And as I say, I'm just going to run through this. I'll explain bits as I'm going along. Any questions, just chuck them in the chat and we'll go through them. So we start off, and this would be the same if it was cold and dark, but we're just sort of visually checking here that these have been completed. So battery switch, which is here, that's switched on. We can see that the plane's all lit up. Position light should be set to steady, and actually it was set to off there, so good check there. That is now set to steady. Next thing would be APU. If you're doing this, if you're doing a quick turnaround, you're aiming sort of 15, 20 minutes, then yeah, switch it on. We're going to be a bit longer, so I'm going to leave it off for the moment. Takes about 3 to 3.5 minutes for the APU to fire up. So just a consideration there when you are going to start it. If you're taking a bit of time to set this all up and everything like that, and then you're aiming for a particular time to be off blocks, you want to make sure you've got that started up and working. Give it 5 minutes just to be safe. But yeah, about 3.5 minutes for the APU generally to start up. IRS mode selectors, they need to come on to nav. We go up here and we just switch them through there onto nav. So they come on and they will start their aligning process. I haven't got this on realistic align. That takes about 7.5 minutes. I've got them on fast alignment, which takes about 3 minutes. So yeah, again, just to save time. If you really want it to be 7 minutes, go for it. But I don't really particularly see a need. Fuel system. So we just check that these are all off. You can switch the fuel pumps on. Now, it doesn't make that much difference, really. Differing operators will do differing things depending on who they are. Obviously, if they're on, they're working. So wear and tear, etc. One thing they do check in the real world is just your crossfeed. Again, we've got the added advantage of we know that this plane, unless you've got random failures on, it's not going to go wrong. It's not going to be broken. But with the crossfeed, if you just switch it across, you will notice here. In fact, if I zoom in a little bit, when we do that, you'll see it goes bright and then dark or off. So if we turn the crossfeed on, it's bright and then goes dim. When it's bright, that means that the valve is actuating, so it's actually moving at that point. And when it goes dim, it has entered its final state. Same with off, so it's bright, so it's now closing, and then it's closed, so there's no crossfeed open, so that valve is now closed. So they would check that in the real world for making sure that it actuates properly. Again, don't need to particularly do that. Passenger signs, we want to make sure they are on, so we can switch them on, and we will switch on the chime one as well to on. Hydraulic pumps, A and B off the engines are both on, and the electric ones I've got as off at the moment. Probably most likely switch these on at this point. Caveat for this and why I have these switched off. I talked about this a little bit in the first tutorial I did. As soon as you switch these on, if you are on ground power or on APU power, it won't happen if you're just on the battery, but if you are on ground power or running off the APU, as soon as you switch these on, the hydraulics in the nose wheel steering will be pressurized. And if we just have a quick look out here, hello, stutters, thank you very much. As soon as that goes on, this will pressurize. Now, if these aren't exactly straight, if the previous pilot or we parked with the nose wheel slightly wonky or anything like that, as soon as you turn those on, that will try and straighten. So if you've got ground crew working on this, or ground crew have attached, if we were having, rather than a tug, if we were having a manual tow bar put on there, or not a manual tow bar, but just a tow bar put on there, and this was slightly wonky and we turn that on, all of a sudden that tow bar will swing round when the wheel swings round because it's attached to it, and you might end up with a battered ground support worker or something like along those lines. So when you do switch that on, you just need to be very sure and very happy that no one is around the front wheel. Again, not so much of a thing in the sim, doesn't really matter, but just a consideration if you're looking to be realistic. So we switch on the hydraulic pumps. Packs then need to come on, so we turn them on to auto. They won't do very much because we haven't got the APU on at the moment, but we'll turn them on. The isolation valve here gets left to open, and APU bleed can come on now. Again, it's not going to do anything until we start that APU, but that would be set to open. While we're up here and we're looking at this panel up here, we can set our pressurization numbers. So these aren't automatic or anything like that. So we need to put in our altitudes here. So we are going to be cruising up at 37,000 feet today. So we put that in 37,000 feet. Our landing altitude, we are landing into Gatwick. And our landing altitude is about 200, 196 on the runway. So we put in, only goes in 50, so you just round it. So we'll put in 200 there. And that's sort of initially your starting point here in terms of items that you need to switch on. In fact, I have forgotten one, yaw damper as well. Just switch that yaw damper on. Again, there's a checkpoint. If you miss that, doesn't matter too much. There is a checkpoint we will come to later where you make sure all of those are on. So it doesn't matter too much. I'd forgotten that, but I did spot it before. Moving on. So next thing then, we've got our initial state set up from the from coming into the aircraft. If we'd been cold and dark, we would also switch on our ground power. So we'd put on the batteries, we'd put on the all of those bits. I can't remember if I said emergency exit lights. We'd arm those as well, and then switch on that ground power if we were using it, or the APU, depending on which way we'd gone in terms of our turnaround and stuff. But we're on ground power already, so we don't need to switch that on. So yeah, we're in a state now where we're ready to start programming the actual FMC. So first things we need to go and do is have a look at our tablet here. So on our tablet, make sure that's visible. I've created a flight on SimBrief. We're not going to be flying on the network today. We haven't got any multiplayer on either, so it's just going to be a straight, no other planes in the sky sort of flight with no ATC restrictions or anything like that, so we can go through the tutorial. But I still have created a SimBrief plan for us to import. I have also updated the AirAC. It was AirAC day yesterday. Let me just go over to here and we will check that the AirAC has indeed imported correctly. So as we come in here, we can see, December 25th to January 22nd, which is great. So that is all in there and correct. If we go back over to our tablet here, what we want to do first of all is go to our electronic flight bag. This will give us all of our flight details, and we just hit that request data from SimBrief button. If you haven't put your SimBrief ID in, you'll need to go down into the settings page and put your SimBrief ID in. But we hit request data from SimBrief and it throws in and fills in our plan here. We can see the full plan on the map. We can see all of the details that are in there. So what the aircraft registration is, call sign, where we're leaving, where we're going to, what our alternate is, etc. Cost index, so you can see there. So that's all imported into there. And that's really all we have to do on this particular page at the moment. We can go and view our OFP, and that will come a little bit later. But for the moment, we only need to worry about just bringing it into here while we go into the FMC and start programming that up. So when you come in, your first page, if you've been cold and dark, your first page will be this ident page. If it's not, you will most likely be on this page here. If you've come in and you've got a turnaround state set. But if you're on cold and dark, your first page that will load up on the FMC is your ident page. And again, we're just checking that we got the right AirAC data. We're in the right model of plane that we expect to be in. What our engine is, so that's our max rating 26k on the engine. And there's obviously the software ID there. So we're just checking that main one. We know these are going to be right. It's just that checking that AirAC data is correct. So I've updated that through Navigraph Hub. If for whatever reason you realize that the AirAC is out of date, you can update it from the tablet in here. So you've got a reinstall nav data button here, and it will pull that in. So you don't need to use Navigraph Hub to do it. Bear in mind, if you press this button, it will erase anything that you've got programmed in the FMC. So if you've already set all your flights up, you'll have to do it all over again. But you can reinstall the nav data. But that is the main reason why we go and check this right at the start before we do anything else. AirAC is correct. So there's then a fairly natural flow through here of pressing this right hand bottom key. Right hand soft key 6, it's called. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the right hand. So it's RSK 6 effectively, in terms of the Boeing Operator's Handbook and so on. That's how they identify them. LSK is left hand soft key on here. But in this, we just move through using this right hand key in a lot of instances. So from our ident page, from checking all of that, we need to go to our position initialization. So we click on that. With Boeing and the FMC, the notation where it requires a field are boxes. So you'll see as we go through that boxes are mandatory fields that must be filled in. Dashes are where you can fill data in, but you don't have to. So they are optional fields to fill in. Your reference airport and your gate, these will pull in coordinates from what you put in here. So if we put in EGPH into here, it will now give us a suggested coordinate to give to the IRS to say where we are. That's not going to be exactly right because that's the dead center of Edinburgh Airport. It is not the gate we're at. If we say we are at gate 203, because we are, and we'll just verify that. So 203 there. and we put 203 into here, from its database, it will say, okay, we're at West 003 21.3, and you can see that's different to the very center of the airport there. But that is just what's in its database. It's not necessarily exactly where we are. And the best way to grab that is go on to page 2 of this position initialization. You can see the number of pages indicated up at the top right there. We go on to page 2. Here is our GPS. We've got a left and a right GPS. There's a slight variation between them because one is on the left of the plane and one is on the right of the plane. So sometimes they might be exactly the same, sometimes they might be different, and apparently sometimes they will change. I think that is very realistic. As I understand it, it's very realistic way of working in terms of obviously satellites come and go out of range, so you will get minor variations on the GPS. But you can see here 003 21.4 is what the GPS is saying. If we go back to gate 203, we can see at 003 21.3. So we're out by one little bit, but that's fine. But I always pick the GPS frequency. So you just click on that soft key next to it and it puts it down here into the scratch pad in the notation you need. Come back in over here, hit set IRS position. That has now set our IRS. And what you will notice from doing that is that we now have a horizon indicator. We now have a map on here. Before that, we didn't have these. These were black boxes and had error messages on them and things like that. So that has now told the plane where we are. So it knows that we are now at Edinburgh, and it's given us that horizon indicator. So position initialization is now done. And again, we go back to our FMC and we've completed that. The IRS box has vanished because we've entered that data. So the next thing that we then need to do is go into route. So we press the route button, and again, we're following that bottom right soft key, RSK6, and it's taking us through to the next step. Clear out the scratch pad. We don't need anything that's in there at the moment. And this is our Route 1 page. Morning, Max Stallion. Good to see you. Thank you very much for joining our stream. So this is our route page. Route 1 here, you can see, and there is a Route 2 functionality within here should you want to do it. I'm not going to go into Route 2 at all today or any of those procedures. We'd take too long, effectively. So Route 1 in here. You can see there is the Route 2 functionality. If you press that, it's got Route 2 up the top. But we'll stick on Route 1. And because we have imported this into our tablet up there, and we've brought in the route already, you can just hit this request flight plan button, he says, and it's not working. Why did that not work? Oh, it's because we had something in the scratch pad there. Let's fix that. Clear the scratch pad out, press request route. And it's saying here, SimBrief route, and then it's given us the route. So that's the route that we have imported into our EFB tablet up there. We also have this option here, which is PMDG 737, and then a 2 next to it. That one is if you use the SimBrief downloader, the Windows app, and you can put it into the folder on the on your hard drive where the plane is stored. You can put routes in there, and then there's actually routes in here to that it pulls in, and I don't know how old those are. They've been in there. I don't even know quite where that's pulling that from, quite frankly, because I haven't even got the SimBrief downloader installed on this version of Windows. So they're obviously very old ones that have been stored in there. Interestingly, though, there is a this particular flight. So anyway, I don't ever use that. I don't ever go into it. I just pull it into the tablet and then press this one here, which is SimBrief route. So we press that, and it will then give us some details here of the flight and the route that we are pulling in. So we're leaving EG PH, leaving Edinburgh, going down to Gatwick. Alternative is alternate is Manchester if we need it. Tells us our distance, tells us the cost index, and the flight initialization. And if we flight initialization, what am I talking about? The initial altitude, so our cruise altitude for this flight. And if we go back to our sim brief, we can see that that all matches up. So 37,000 feet, cost index of 61. Now, you will note SimBrief says a 409 nautical mile route distance, whereas the FMC is saying 353. That is expected, primarily because it's imported it, but it's not imported our approaches and our SIDS. So you do have a slightly less distance at the moment because you will set the departure and arrivals as we're going. So yeah, that is expected. We also have our information, fuel information in here. So what our zero fuel weight is, and what our reserves and our block fuel is. This is a neat bit where you can cheat. If you have things such as GSX and so on, then you can, at this point, use GSX to load your passengers, load your fuel, etc., and do all that realism. It's great. I have nothing against it. 99 times out of 100, I will not bother doing that just because I want to get into the actual flying and so on. So you've got two really cool buttons here: set payload and set fuel. And if we have a quick look here, oh, actually, I just noticed this plane, which I had changed the setting on that, but this plane, I wonder if it's because I've used a new livery, is set into pounds, whereas I have my SimBrief OFP in gallons. So I'm just going to very quickly make a change to the plane. I'll do it on this one. He says, trying to remember where it is. I think it's in this one. Yes, there. Kilos. There we go. That's better. Okay, we'll fix that. Go back there. Cool. Let's try that again. Ah, lovely. That looks a bit better. I did think that number, the zero fuel weight number, was a little bit weird when I saw it. So, right, we're in kilos now. Yes. So we set the payload and set fuel. And if we watch this fuel indicator here, when we press set fuel, you can see it automatically updates this straight away. No waiting around. It's just done. It says SimBrief block fuel has been set, and it's set the exact number that is in our SimBrief profile. Same with the payload. Press that. It says SimBrief payload set. So now you've got all the right weights and everything, and the simulated number of passengers and so on. So that is all in there as well. So that is all you need to do on this page. And then we go, okay, we've set the route, we've set the payload. We're now going to select this route. And at this point, this box highlights and it is processing. It is now importing and putting this route into the FMC. So all of the bits from SimBrief are done. It says route uplink is now ready, and we're going to just load that in. So you press this load button that was there down the bottom, and it is now says route uplink loading. Is that the same as using the weight and balance app from the tablet? Good question, Jay. Very good question. And yes, it is. So if we go into here, so this is a new functionality for 2024. This I don't believe this was in the 2020 version, but yes, you can load the plane from SimBrief here. So you press that, and you can do precise loading. Load the plane from SimBrief, and it will load it up automatically and put all of that information in there. Yes, exactly the same as doing that and putting all of your information in there. I'm not entirely sure why you would do that. I get why they want to do it if you're not using SimBrief, I suppose. You can put in all your details and everything like that. But when you're running through this, it's putting in all of those details as well. So, yeah, I still use that one rather than the app on the tablet. So, Route data uplink. So that is now in. It has completed that. No worries, Dave. Route data uplink is now complete. So that is in there. If you want to just double check it, you can go over to this FMC. And if you press legs, you can now see that that information is in there. If you press route and go through to the next page, you can also see that that data is in there. What we haven't done yet is activate this route. So we're just going to activate that now, which is this button again. It's this bottom right button pulling you through to the next step of the process of setting up the FMC. So we hit activate. That's now activated this route. It is in the FMC. The execute button you'll see here, just as we press that, has lit up. I'm not going to execute this yet. You can, but I'm not going to just yet. I'm going to put my departure in first of all. What you can see is now that we've got a dotted line here, which is giving us our route here. And if we zoom out a little bit on the map, you will see our first waypoint down here is now showing. Now it's a dotted line because we haven't executed it yet. So this is planned in. This is the same as inserting temporary on a Airbus. So you've planned it in. You've said this is what I plan to do, but I haven't told you to go and do this yet, plane. But this is what is currently expected in there. But at the moment, it won't do it. You won't be able to activate nav mode or anything, VNav, LNav, or any of that because it's not actually been executed yet. So with that, we are now going to put in our departure data. Departure and arrival button here. We're not going to bother with the arrival yet. We'll do that once we're up in the air. If it was a really short flight, yes, you would put it in. Hello, Bents. Thank you very much for joining. So yeah, we're not going to put in our arrival information yet. We'll do that in the air. Short flights over to Dublin or something like that from Manchester. Yeah, you put it in straight away. But the actual arrival will do in the air once we've taken off. But for the moment, we are going to put in our departure. And we're going to assume that we've gone and got clearance if we're doing this on VATSIM. And we're going to be taking off on runway 06 today, by the looks of it, with the winds, is what SimBrief is telling me. 2-knot headwind, yeah, so runway 06. So I'm right at the wrong end of the flipping runway. That's all good. Bents, very good. Thank you very much. We are doing a flight from Edinburgh down to Gatwick today, and we're doing a bit of a tutorial on the PMDG 737, just how to go through setting it all up, doing a flight from A to B. So just a short flight, but going into more details on exactly how to use this plane in 2024. So runway 06 is what we're taking off on, and we are taking off on the Gossam 1 Delta departure. So we choose that SID as well. There's no transitions or anything like that. So that has now been added in. And if we go over here and have a quick look at our legs, we can see that it's now put in some of our departure information into the legs page. Now, again, we have not executed this. So if we look at the map, we can see there's extra SIDs and or extra waypoints in there. If I zoom in a little bit, you can now see we've got Delta 065 Alpha and 50 Charlie, Gal 35, Gal 30, and so on. Again, still a dotted line, but we've put that in now. So now we've got that in, I'm happy to execute that. I'm happy that that is now what we want. We would, at this point, check it against our Navigraph. So if we have a quick look at Navigraph here, so we can see here that we've got all of this information in here. So we'd be checking against our, see if I can do that, legs page to make sure that all of these match up with what's on our flight plan and what's on our departure information and on Navigraph as well. If we have a look at the SimBrief OFP on here, you can see, because we've got the departure in our routing, you can see that we've got these waypoints in there as well. So 065 Alpha, 50 Charlie, Gal 35, Gal 30 is all in there. So we can verify that in a multiple ways. Now, there's not a guarantee that this OFP is going to be right if the runways change, or the departure changes for whatever reason during a clearance, then that might get out of date. But you've got a number of different verification points on there. So that is that. Bence, I'm on PlayStation and just got the game for Xmas. It's a little hard, but I can learn quick. Yes, fantastic. It's great that it's come onto PlayStation. More pilots learning, more people getting exposure to the game, which is great. It will take some time to learn. I would suggest starting off with a smaller plane, something like a Cessna or something like that, to learn the basic controls. And then you can get into more advanced planes like the 737 and learning how all of those functions work. But yeah, great. Congratulations on getting it for Christmas. So we are now into here. So we have put in all of our departures, information and everything like that. So I'm happy to now execute that. So we hit the execute button, and now our route has changed to pink. So that is now our magenta route. So that is confirmed, that is working. And we can see that our first waypoint is now active. So on the Boeings, a magenta waypoint is what the flight director will head to. That is our next active waypoint on the route that we are currently in. So that is now our routing and our legs and our departure all set. So next thing then to do is our performance information. And we do that using the performance calculator. We can do that on the tablet. With the update of the to 2024, with the PMDD 777, you can move the tablet over to here, so you've got an easy way of seeing both the tablet and the FMC when you're putting in the performance information. With the 737, you couldn't. They fixed that now, or brought in that functionality, I should say. And to do that, if you click on, where was it? It was a click spot somewhere, if I remember rightly. Oh, I did it the other day. Where was it? Top right of the lower display unit. Yes, there it is. Thank you, Malky. I knew it was somewhere. Super. So yes, this little screw down here does that, and then it pops it there for you. And then to bring it back, it's this clip on the left-hand side there. You click that, and it puts it back in there. So yeah, there we go. So we can now put that in there, and it now gives us that visibility here of seeing both the FMC and our tablet. So to do the performance, fairly simple here. We click on, go back to the main menu with the home button, go onto performance tools, and we can then import the details from our OFP. Now it's already put some of it in there because it knows where we are, and we've imported the SimBrief route. So we know we're taking off from runway 6, and as soon as we choose the runway, it gives us the elevation, the runway heading, runway slope, etc. We can then import some of the details. So if we press import from aircraft, it will pull in our current weight and our center of gravity information on there, and what it expects our config to be. You can also import from the OFP, so you will notice there is a slight change in fuel, and that's down to our taxi estimation and everything. So that's more likely going to be what our takeoff fuel is. So I would always use the import from OFP option. So click on that, it gives us that weight. And then if we import the weather, it will then pull in the weather based on our airport and runway information. And we will just change that to hectopascals. So weather's all in there. And then you just hit calculate. And that has put this information now in there. So this is now calculated it. It says we're only doing a takeoff 2. We're doing a D-rated takeoff. And it's given us all of our V speeds there as well. So now that we've calculated all of that, we just need to put it into the system. So to do that, in fact, let me go back here. So we I've put the route in. So once you finish putting that route in, we'd obviously jumped off into the legs page to have a look at all of this, and we put our departure and arrival in. But if you would normally end once you've loaded it and put the route in, again, it was that bottom right, it's guiding you through. So your next thing to do is your performance initialization. So you can just click on that bottom right soft key. If you also want, you've got this init ref button here, which will take you to the same place. So this takes you to your performance initialization. Morning, Dougal. Lurking in a dark corner, phone only for now. Well, good to see you, Dougal. I hope your Christmas has been decent. And it is, yeah, it's definitely good to see you. Right. So we've done our performance initialization here. And what we need to do is then pull this into our FMC. Now we can go and type this in manually. The general real world process is typing this in manually because most of them 737 don't have any way of pulling this in from tablets and things like that. So you would go and take all of these numbers and just put them in manually, type them in. Again, that box notation. These are required numbers. Anything that's a dash isn't necessarily required. It doesn't matter, but it is good practice to put it in. However, we've got this performance initialization request. Press that button, and much like it did with the route, it will pull in the information from your tablet. So we give it a sec. And any second now, most of these numbers will get filled in, he says. There we go. So yeah, performance initialization uplink ready, and it says, "Do you want to load it?" So we press that load button. So that's pulled that in. You can see it's put in our cruise winds. That's from our OFP topper climb outside air temperature. It's put in that cost index that we'd seen a couple of times before of 61. It's put in there. Put all of our information in, including our zero fuel weight and reserves. Plan fuel. We can put this in. I generally go and put this in. Again, just good practice. To do that, we can pull that from our OFP. So if we have a look here, so our planned fuel here, trip fuel is 3,343 kilos. So we will do some rounding there. So I will say 3.3 on that. So you just type in 3.3. Put that in there, and that's put that in there now. And we made a change here, so we just want to execute that change. What you will see is you've put 3.3 in there. If you notice, that number is slightly larger than these numbers because it's saying this is a different to the ones that have been pulled in. This is something different. And as soon as you press execute, all of those other numbers go large. So that's now confirmed. We've executed that performance. So all of those now increase in size as well. Insufficient fuel, ignore that at the moment. That is not correct. He says, just double checking. Yeah, no, that's not correct. That's fine. That will sort itself out with engine switch on because at the moment it's trying to use the fuel flow and other calculations. So ignore the fact that it says insufficient fuel there at the moment. One thing I have always noticed, and I don't know why this does this, but on PMDGs, when you import it, our cruise level for this flight is flight level 370. When we imported the route, it said flight level 370. When we do the performance initialization, always double check that one, because as we can see there, it's gone, well, hold on a minute. You're cruising at flight level 390 here, which isn't what we're doing. It's not what's on our flight plan. So just double check that. And if we need to, just change it. So we're going to do that. We're going to do cruise altitude of 370. It'll come up with this insufficient fuel message again, but it's not accurate. So close that off. So that is now our performance initialization page done. There is a second page on here with perf limits. Don't need to worry about these. Don't touch them. Don't change them. Just, I don't even know what they are. So just ignore those. I sort of know what they are, but I'm not going to go into the exact details because I don't have a confident enough knowledge on exactly what they are to give you any correct information. So we've done our performance initialization. All of that information is now in there. So again, this bottom soft key on the right hand side there is guiding us through. The next thing we need to do is our N1 limit. So we've seen from our performance calculation here that we are doing a takeoff to a derated takeoff. So we now need to put this details in here. So we need to tell it that we're doing a 22K derated takeoff. So you click here to match up takeoff to. We click that, and it was now going to limit our N1 power. Our max power is going to be 89.7 of the engine. So rated down 22K on the engine. We're going to leave it in normal climb mode. That's what it suggested. We then need to put in our selected temperature, which it gives up there. So that's 48. So we fill in that box. Again, it's not a required field, but it is good to do that. And that's actually changed our numbers here because we've now put that in there. So it's actually adjusted this down because of what our selected temperature is. So it's now 86.5, which then also matches up here on our tablet, 86.5. So we've now put in our N1 limits. We've told it we're doing that derated takeoff. And actually, when we put in that selected temperature, it's now actually decided that climb 1, so a slightly slower climb as well, is best suited for that. So we filled those in, and away we go. Next then, again, leading us on through this bottom right soft key is into our takeoff. So here is our takeoff references. This is where we set our V speed. So at the moment, you can see on the left-hand side here, we've got this little message here that says no V speeds. We don't know what our V1 and our rotate speeds are or anything like that at the moment. So we need to fill in all of this detail. We've got 2 pages here. I always start on the second page because when you put some of this information in, it will erase these. If I just put the flaps and the center of gravity in now, it will give me some speeds. But if I then go and put in these bits of information, it will erase those speeds, and I then have to click another button again. So I always go to page 2 first, and it wants our runway winds. So we would obviously get that from the ATIS. In this instance, we've got it here on the tablet as well. So it's 080 at 6 knots. So we put that in. And our runway slope, runway is completely flat today. So we put that in there as 0. We then go back to page 1. And we can see up here we've got a flaps. Oh, you can't see that for the bar. Sorry, everybody. Up here at the top, we've got flaps 5. So we put that in. Flaps 5. And you can see at this point, it's now given us some speeds. So we got 135, 135, and 139, which doesn't quite match what our tablet's showing there as V1, V rotate, and V2. So we just need to make sure we've got our center of gravity in right. This, and another trick for those that don't know, you can type it in. So 5.4, you can type in the center of gravity 22.82 in here, so 22.8. But if you just press on it, it will automatically pull it in. Tap it again, 22.8 there, 5.31 on there. Now, that's not changed these numbers yet, and I think those will change when we actually set the flaps. You can also manually adjust these. So these are the suggested from the FMC. If you want to put in what the tablet says, you can just put that in instead. If you just press that button without anything in there, or press it a second time once you've typed something in, it will take what the FMC is giving you. So I'm just going to type in to match up with our performance tablet 139, 139, and 145. So we will put them in. That's added those in there. Takeoff weight is put in there 59.5, and we can now see that we have our V speeds in there. So that no V speed message has gone, and we can see V1 in there set as 139, which is what we've put in there. So that is our FMC setup. We've got our departure in there, we've got all of our performance information in there, and we are now basically FMC all set up. So, and at this point, effectively the captain would leave this page up. So this is the page that the captain wants to be on takeoff. First officer would be on the legs page, but we'll come on to that when we get onto the runway. What time are we at? 10:09. Perfect. So we've now set all of this up. We'll put our tablet back up over here. Next thing then is to set up our MCP and all of our other switches and so on. So we need to make sure that we've set our barrow. We would have most likely have done that when we got our clearance. There is the glorious button in MSFS if you've got it bound, the B key, which has set it. So we can see there 1036 hectopascals is the barrow. We can verify that against the QNH that's come in through our weather on our performance. We'll just double press that again. No changes on that. Outside air temperature is 7 degrees, which is what it is, and still 1036. So we've pressed that. We've set 1036 on there. 1036 is also set on here. This is a setting within the aircraft options. So 1036 is set on here. You can set that you have to set this manually. I've got it set so it automatically sets all three. So it sets the first officer's side, so that's 1036 as well, and the standby instrument. You can leave it so you have to do it manually, but you've got enough to be worrying about as far as I'm concerned when you're flying single pilot in one of these, and I do it on VATSIM and so on. So if you're on the network, you've got tons to deal with. Let it do it, so we only have to do it once, and I'm not afraid of pressing the B key. If you do want to set it manually, you just use this little knob up here to set it, and you can rotate it round to wherever you need to. But I'm just going to press that B key and set it to what it needs to be. Lovely. So we've set the barrow. We now need to set up the MCP or mode control panel. And in fact, my flight directors are on for some reason. I might need to change that in my settings. So we'll switch the flight directors off for a second. So first thing to come on when you are switching us on is your flight directors. Actually, have I got a better view of this? Yeah, here we go. We'll use that one. Flight directors. Whichever person in the cockpit is pilot flying for the leg switches their flight director on first. So if the captain is flying, this left-hand side one comes on first. If it is the first officer who will be the pilot flying for the flight, then this one comes on first. And the reason for that is the first one you switch on is the master. So you switch that on, you get a little MA. So that's the master autopilot computer. There are two computers in here for the autopilot. A and B. So we switch that one on, we then switch that on, and that is a slave, effectively, of the first one. So that's master, that's in command. The second one is just on, but not controlling anything. So we switch that on. We then want to verify that the auto throttle is off at the moment, which it is. We then need to set our speed in here. Now, this varies from operator to operator on what you set. Some will set the V2 speed because effectively that is your speed that you will fly if you have an engine out on takeoff. you will be aiming to fly at 145 knots. Some set higher than that. I tend to operate a V2 plus 15 knots. Why I do that is simply because that's what's on JD's checklist. I know other operators I've talked to, pilots of the 737 and other operators will do V2 plus 10, some will do V2. Whatever you want to pick it to be is entirely fine. As long as it's not lower than your V2 speed, all of them are sort of acceptable, really. So we set that. So I set V2 plus 15. At this point, we want to arm LNAV and VNAV. So we get them armed because we are going to be using the FMC guidance that's on here. So that's our lateral navigation, left and right, and that's our vertical navigation. We've got differing heights and constraints in here that we need to be at. So we can see there GAU 35, 5,000 or above we need to be at by the time we get to this point. So we want to use that VNAV to make sure that we are on the correct path. Heading, we need to set to the runway heading. So we're taking off on runway 06. So the heading for that is 060. We put that in there. And you will see here, I've got an altitude in here of 10,100. And why I do that, so on charts, Automod has picked up. No, we don't want you. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Love the old spam messages. You will notice I've got 10,100 in here. And when I'm setting this up, if I haven't got my clearance at the point where I'm setting up the MCP, I will always set 100 on whatever altitude I have. Some charts, such as if you're flying out of, let's say, Stockholm Arlanda or something like that, will give you an initial altitude on takeoff. And just having a look to see if our route here, so it says max SID altitude is 6,000. So that is likely to be what you'll be cleared to. So if I'm setting this up before clearance, because it says max altitude of the SID on the GOSAM 1 Delta is 6,000, I'll set it to 6,100 until the point when I've got clearance from the controller from ATC. If I've not got ATC on or I'm flying off network, then obviously just set it to whatever the chart is. Or if I'm not following the chart exactly and I'm just going to get up to altitude, set it to your cruise altitude. But in this instance, 6,100. I've now got clearance, so I'm going to say, okay, fine, I'm happy with that. So it's 6,000. But it's just a quick visual reminder here of looking at it and going, well, hold on a minute, 6,100 is not right. There's definitely never going to be, I'm never going to be given a flight level or an altitude of 100 feet. That doesn't make any sense. So that's why it's just a quick visual look of something looks odd there. Now, the other thing you would normally set here at this point is course. So this would generally be the runway, the course for returning back to Edinburgh. If we took off, had an engine failure, something along those lines, and we needed to divert back, best practice is set the course, the approach course in for the ILS for runway 06. So that you don't have to worry about it. It's just set, ready to go for a quick return if you do need to do a quick return. We know nothing's going to go wrong. We know we're not going to have to return back to it. So it's very rare I do that. But good practice is to have a look at the approach for runway 06, understand what the final approach course is, set that in. That also goes into the whole route 2 thing of, okay, if we get an engine out at this point, I'm going to copy route 1 into route 2. What is our plan? What are we going to do if we need to return back? And you would set up the route. You copy route 1. You'd then say, okay, I'm going to do the first couple of waypoints, and then maybe I'll hold at GAU 30, or is there a predefined hold on a chart somewhere else? Lots and lots of stuff we can go into at some point, but we're not going to do that today. And so that is now this all set up. That is our MCP all done. And then the last things we need to now check on here is our center console down here. So we want to check that our auto brakes are set to RTO. We've not done that yet. So we turn that. That's to our rejected takeoff setting for takeoff. So we've now set that. We want to check that our parking brakes are set. We got a red light on there and the lever is up. If they were off, why aren't my parking brakes going off? Oh, goody. Something's keeping my parking brakes on. Aye, aye, aye. Bear with me a second, folks. Let's have a look here. What? Toggle parking brakes. Switch 20 on. That is fine. Bravo, nothing, nothing, nothing. Add parking, mouse. That shouldn't be affecting it. Huh. Okay. This is not helpful. Mm. Huh. There is a handy site that contains engine out SIDs out there. Oh, that's good to know, Malky. Realistic mode, depress first, then lever. Yeah, okay, that makes no sense. I literally was doing exactly what I had done previously. Realistic mode is on, and I was pressing the brakes and it wasn't working, and now it is. Sometimes this sim is just crackers. Okay, they're working now. Thanks, Murph. Hello, Murph, by the way. Nice to see you. Happy Christmas. Uh, excellent. So, parking brakes are now working. Good. So we check our parking brakes. We then want to verify that our comms are all set. So if we were car parks, happy Christmas, mate. Happy Christmas indeed. Uh, So, yes, we want to check that our comms are right in this instance. We're not going to worry too much about the comms, but you would obviously be set on ground or whatever comms are on if you're on VATSIM. If there's no ATC on, you'd be on Unicom, unless you're in the US, and then you'd be on CTAF. But in this instance, we'll just say that we're on Unicom. So we'll set it to 1228 and leave it on that, but we're not obviously doing any ATC. ILS, again, going into the whole returning back to the runway. If you got an engine out procedure or anything, you would most likely set your ILS for runway 06 so that if you needed to quickly intercept it, you could. And then the last thing here is our squawk. So we are going to set whatever squawk the ATC have given us, and we're going to make sure that the this transponder is set to the correct option. So at this point, we would switch it on to on, and we would make sure it is in alt off mode at the moment because we're not moving or anything like that. So we have now set all of that up, and that has now got us to the point where we are about ready to start our engines. So with that, we hadn't started our APU at this point. We need to get that started. So I'm just going to start that, and that is just done with this switch here. APU, hold it on to start for a few seconds, and that will start spinning up. The way we know that that's starting to spin up is you will see low oil pressure light come on, and we will also see this EGT start to rise as it fires up. And if we go outside and spin round to the back here, I don't know what is going on my frames today, but you can now see we've got some heat coming out of here, and we'll get some sound as well coming out of the APU. And there we go. We can see that EGT is now rising up, and that is working. So APU is now running. We are waiting for this APU light here to light up. So we'll give that a minute or two to do that. So at this point, we go through one of our first checklists, which is the pre-flight checklist. Pre-flight checklist. There we go. So the APU started up a little bit quicker than the 3 minutes. Welcome back, Bents. Learned how to use autopilot. Excellent. Well done. Good to know. So APU gen is now off the bus. So we're not using it. We're using ground power at the moment. What we want to do is switch over to our APU power. So we just press both of these down to switch that on. And you can see we get a little flash of light, totally expected. And we are now using our APU power there. And we can see up here, if we go to APU gen, we can see the APU is providing or is generating power. So we've got some power up there. So APU is now started, and we run through one of our first checklists that is on here, and that is our pre-flight checklist. So that's oxygen, which we've tested. If you really want to be realistic about it, you can go and press the oxygen test button, and it'll give us that sound and tell us that the oxygen is all working. Navigation, transfer, and display switches are all normal. So that's all of these switches here. So what are our MFDs? What are our DUs doing? Again, don't particularly need to check these. You know they're going to be in the right state. You may have accidentally switched one. It's quite easy sometimes with Flight Sim if you're using your scroll wheel to just go and accidentally flick one of these. So it is good practice to check just in case you've taken something off the normal. But again, not necessarily completely essential. Window heat. We need to check that the window heat is on. I've got this in turnaround mode, so these are already on. If they were off, they would look like that with no lights. Thing to bear in mind with 737s, window heats need to be on for 15 minutes before takeoff with standard operating procedures. So we want to make sure that we're getting them on relatively early. But in my turnaround state, they're already on, so that's fine. Pressurization mode selector is in auto. That's really important. You can do some very bad things with this being in manual. At any point, it's very easy to dump all of the pressurization out of the plane quite quickly if you don't know exactly what you're doing with this. Just leave that in auto, and we've got our altitudes set correctly. Flight instruments, they are all set up. So we've got our FMC all set up. We've got our heading in, we've got our speeds in, and everything like that. Parking brake is now set. We've double checked that. I'm just going to do it again. Yes, it is working. We will set the parking brake. And our engine start selectors are to cut off. They are down and 100% cut off, which is great. So we then need to do the flight deck doors, make sure they are closed and locked, which it is. Air conditioning packs need to be switched off at this point because we are going to be starting our engines, and we need the packs off to start the engine. So we'll turn the packs off. APU bleed is on, which we already selected on. And our anti-collision light, we are about to start. So we need to let people know that we are going to start up. So we will put our anti-collision light on there, and that has switched that on. Now, one thing we still do have attached, if we were using GSX, it would automatically sort this out, but we've still got the air stairs attached here and the door open. So from our tablet, because I'm not going to use GSX in this instance, just to show you the true default PMDG, we'll do ground ops. We will go to doors. We're going to close that left door, and I'm going to remove the stairs here. So there we go. The stairs are disappearing. That door is closing. And if we go back to door management, we will now see that they are all closed. We're going to arm them all now because we're in the about to take off. So the doors are all armed. I'm also going to remove the ground power. We've disconnected the ground power because we've got that APU on the running the power. So we can remove the ground power now. So that's now disconnecting. and we're also going to remove those chocks. So the chocks are all gone. So we are now disconnected from all ground equipment. Ground power's gone. Ground service vehicles are all gone. Those stairs are gone, and all of our doors are closed and locked. So, next thing, fuel pumps. We're going to need to turn those on. So, fuel pumps have been turned on. We can check here that we've got the right fuel in, which we do, which is great. And we are now going to look to get our pushback. So we've got a before start checklist that we run through as well. Again, this is off JD's checklist. So flight deck door closed and locked. Fuel is in and the pumps are on. Passenger signs, just make sure that they're on. We'd already turned them on earlier on, but they are still on. Windows are all closed and locked. New feature in the 2024 version of the PMDG 737, you can now open the window. So that is now openable, which is fun. To close it, a lot of people have been having trouble working out how to close it because it's not this handle again. There is a little lever here, which is true to life. There's a little latch here that locks it in place. If you press that, it will then close the window up and lock it all for you. So that is now closed and locked. MCP is all set. So we've got our speed in, heading, altitude. We'll set that to 6,000. Again, there's that little visual representation. Yes, we've been cleared to 6,000. LNAV, VNAV have been armed. Takeoff speeds are all in. V1 is showing on there, and we've got V1, V2, so V1, V rotate, and V2 are all in and set. If you were doing the checklists properly with a co-pilot, the co-pilot would read those out to you, those speeds out. CDU pre-flight, so that's all set in there. Everything's all set in. Rudder and aileron trim, we just want to check that they're all centered. So that is centered correctly. Trim should be 5.31, and we haven't done that yet. So we will just have a look here. So we want this set to 5.31. So we will do this. And it's a bit of a guessing game here, to be honest with you. It's not exact, so wherever you think sort of 5.31 is, we will put that in. So 5.31 is in. Taxi and takeoff briefing. We're going to taxi and then take off. There's our briefing done. You would go into more detail than that, but you've been going through it yourself, so there's not much point. But yes, that's what we're going to do. Anti-collision light we've already switched on. That flashing light now. We've got the lights flashing on the top here to tell everybody that this plane is about to move. Super. So we now have done all of that. So the next thing then is our engine start and pushback. So, as I say, if we're using GSX, we could just tell it in the usual GSX way to do the pushback. But we're going to use the PMDG version here just to show you guys how to use it. So in here, we've got FS actions. All of our doors and everything are closed, so we don't need to do anything with that. We just need to go to this pushback. And it says, what pushback do we want to do? So we're going to do a left-hand pushback here. So we want a standard L. And we need to tell it what way we want the nose to turn, which in this instance is to the left. Now, there's a distance to taxi line in here. We're going to see how realistic this is. I don't know at the moment if 295 is right, but we'll give it a go. So it's a standard L, so it's going to come back and then turn us to the direction that we have requested. So turn nose to the left, and then we're going to turn 90 degrees. Last thing we need to do is select the tug. We choose that. So there's the TPX 200. So that's the tug, and then we are going to press start. And this will now start a pushback. And we should get some sound, hopefully, in a minute, of some requests for pushback, hopefully. Give it a sec. Now, I thought we should get some communication from the. I've not actually tried this since in 2024 yet, so this could be a fun one. Usually you get some voices from the. You landed good for the first time. Well done, Bence. Jolly good. Usually you get some communication from them, or you did previously. I'm just going to take the parking brakes off and see if that starts us moving. It hasn't. Okay. Let's start that again. Huh. Well, that's an interesting one. I don't know if it's potentially bugged in the here. There's only one tug to choose from. Okay. That doesn't seem to be working, and I don't know why. There's nothing here that shouldn't should stop it from working. Um, well, in that case, then uh, I'm going to have to, because I can't work out why that's not working. I'll do some investigation and follow up on that after the stream. But we're going to have to resort to GSX. So I will just use GSX for this instance. So we'll do prepare for pushback and departure. So while that's setting up, we will have a quick look at our overhead panel here. So overhead panel here, we've got a few orange lights which indicate there's some problems, but they're all expected. With our engine start, standard Boeing policy is that you start the first engine with your igniter right on your first flight of the day, at least, if not all the time. So we use the right igniter. The reason for this is if this igniter doesn't work, uh, you're not going anywhere. That is a hard, if that doesn't work, this plane is not serviceable. So we start it with the right igniter. There are reasons for that. I'm not going to go into all the exact details on that, but there are reasons for that in terms of redundancy and engine starts and which engine needs to start first if you haven't got your APU and all that sort of stuff. So right igniter has to be that. So we switch that on to the right hand side to make sure that it is working. GSX is doing its thing, so we're locking gear. So we should get lifted up momentarily by the tug. Yep. So there's Janice doing her job. So she's put that tow bar in there now. Excellent. So where are we going? Nose is going to go to the left here, isn't it? Yep. Nose to the left. So we'll just hit that. Right. So she's ready. She's connected this all up. Tug is ready to go. So we are going to release the parking brakes, and fingers crossed, it should start pushing us. There we go. Good. Phew. And she's told us that we can start our engines. So to do that, oh, hold on. I've got some other audio going on here with that. I'm just going to switch that off. I've got that universal announcer thing running, so I'll just switch that off for now. So engine starts. We're on to the right igniter. We're going to start the right-hand side engine first, and to do that, you just turn it to ground. So as soon as we do that, we have a look down here on your ECAS display down here. We get our engine information showing up here. And this is our N2 spooling up. And what we want to do is when this gets to 25% on a NG plane, we introduce fuel. So that's 25 now. We flick this up into the idle position, and we've introduced fuel. We can see that N2 is continuing to spool up. We can see the fuel flow starting to increase. We are getting some oil pressure and some oil temperature now. While that does that, I am just going to check. Yes, our pushback is working nicely. What we also just heard was a click, and you will see here that this switch that we turned to ground has now flicked back. When our N2 reaches 56%, that will automatically switch back to off, because at 56%, your engine is started, it's functioning, so we don't need it to be trying to run through the starting procedure. Janice has told us to set our parking brakes, so we will do that. And we have now confirmed a good engine start. Normally you'd leave that until the second one, but we'll get GSX disconnecting so that it's out of the way. So then at this point we want to start the other engine. You can switch it back to both at this point if you want. I tend to just leave it on right. So we'll do onto ground again, exactly the same procedure here. So we go back down here and we have a look. We've got our N2 spooling up. We wait for the 25% to show on here. And there's 25%, and we do that. Now, a couple of things here. Our packs are currently off. In places where it's really hot, if you're flying over in America and things like that, and it's a really hot day, once you've switched on the right-hand engine, you can set your isolation valve back to auto and turn on the right pack before you've started the left-hand engine if you need to cool the cabin down. That isolation valve will divert all of the APU bleed over to the left-hand engine. So you can see here that we've got this line here indicating it will go to the left-hand engine. So once right-hand engine is running, you can close it and get the air conditioning working for the packs, for the passengers, quicker than waiting for the second engine to spool up if we need to. In this instance, it's a 7 degrees. We're not worried about that. It's fine. So that is now our second engine started. We can see that this has gone back to off, so it's flicked back. We can see that both generators are now functioning, but they're currently off the bus. We're still working on the APU bleed, or APU electricity, not bleed, sorry. APU electricity. So we just need to now switch on to our engine generators, and we just flick that across to that. And we can now see that the APU generator is off the bus. It is not powering anything. And at that point, we can now switch our APU off, because we don't need that running. Our APU bleed can also come off, and let's get the aircon back on for the pack. So we put them on to auto. Lastly, that isolation valve that I talked about, we set that to auto as well, so that will do its thing if needs be. Don't worry about the ram door full open message. That will continue to be on there while we're on the ground. Once we take off, that will sort itself out. At this point, the last thing we then need to do, switch back the engine starter to both and put on our probe heat. So we want to make sure that that probe heat is on. If you're in the 737 MAX, it's an auto probe heat, so you don't need to worry about it. But in the NGs, it's an on or off, so we switch that on. We now have no orange lights. That is what we're looking for at the point when we take off, and we'll check the upper one as well. No orange lights on there. That is a good sign for us to see. Super. So, last bits then. So we've done the engine generators. We've done the probe heat. We're not going to need anti-ice today. It's 7 degrees. That's fine. Packs are all now on as we needed them. APU has been switched off, as has the APU bleed. We now need to check our flight controls are all working. To do that, we press the system here on the to bring that down onto the MFD, and we can check if we could see it. I'll move that out the way. We can check our rudder is moving to where it needs to, our elevator is correct, and our airlines are doing what they need to as well. Brake temperatures are all where they need to be, and our hydraulic pressure all looks good. You want it around the 3,000 mark, give or take. I think it's 100 psi. So that's all looking as it needs to be, which is great. So we can switch that off. We will put the speed brake back to where it needs to be. At this point, we set our flaps. So we'll set them to flaps 5 and we will let them start to transit. We can see that they're transiting there. And you will notice the first notch between between up and 1 is very slow, and then it speeds up and gets quicker. There is a reason for that. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's designed for that. There is a reason behind that, but I can't remember what that is. But yeah, so if it starts looking slow when you start first moving it, don't worry, that is expected. Excellent. So we have now set up a plane. We are basically ready for taxi now, which is where we want to be. So we are now going to taxi, he says. His things stopped working. Bear with me. There we go. Navigraph had stopped working on my screen for a second. So with that then, taxing. We need to turn on our taxi lights. Runway turn-off lights are up to you. They are operator and condition required. They don't have to be on. I always just turn them on just because. But yeah, we are now going to head up and taxi to where we need to be. So we take off the parking brakes and we apply a little bit of thrust, no more than 40% on the N1 here, just to get us moving. He says, why are we not moving? Why are we not moving? Well, that's interesting. We should be moving here. Parking brake is off. Let's put that back on and take it off again. Huh. I do wonder if that's something to do with the pushback that I started on there on the. So why is that actually? Let's switch that tug off. Does that fix it? Yes. Okay. Haha. Right. It was that tug because that tug was selected. There's something with this pushback. Okay, that seems a little bit buggy. I'd potentially avoid using that for the moment. Right. Good. There we go. So there we go. So Malky, you asked a question. Would it be slow in case of ice? Is that in terms of your? Sorry, I didn't see what time you sent that. Do you mean in terms of moving off? If you've got anti-ice on and things like that, or sorry, a bit more context on that question. Sorry, I missed that one. So while I'm waiting for Malky to respond to that, we now have the flap speed. There is an element of that. It's something to do with the slats as well. I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head. I will take a note of that one and I will come back to you on that in Discord over at Two Tone Murphy's Discord. Cool. So we've started moving now. No more than 40%. A little bit of energy gets us going. So standard taxi speed, no more than about 20 knots on the ground speed. So you can see we're doing 5. At turns, we want to be no more than 10 on here. So we can move it along. We don't want to be super slow though as well, especially if you've got people behind you and things like that. You don't want to be Mr. Go Slow. So 15 or so is fine. I'm not going to take into account the other traffic and things. We haven't got traffic switched on. We're not on VATSIM. Obviously, you would call for ground for clearance and things like that if you're doing that. But obviously, good practice. Look left, look right. Make sure you're not going to crash into anything. We're taking off on runway 06, so we just want to then taxi down here to runway 06. Now, a little trick here for keeping on the center line. You've got a little dot here just in your vision here. Try and keep that lined up with the center line here, basically. And if you do that, what you should find is that you are basically on the center line there. You can see I'm a little bit out there. Oh, actually, all right. That used to be the trick. Maybe my vision is, or my standard seating position's a little bit off. Okay, so that's dead center. Ooh, some nice stutters there. Thanks, Edinburgh. Okay, so it appears to be dead center between these two now. It used to be on that. Don't know why that's changed. But dead center between these two keeps you on the center line. So anyway, let's give us a bit more gas so we can get down. So while we are doing this, we just want to run through a few more checks while we're heading down to the runway. So we'll do our after start checklist, which we probably should have done before we moved off. But anyway, generators are on. We know that. Probe heat's on. Anti-ice we don't need. Isolation valve we've set to auto. Engine start selectors. That's one we missed. These now need to be set to continuous. So while you're taking off, you want these to continuous. So if you get an engine flame out or anything like that, they are constantly doing that click, 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 trying to ignite those engines up. So if they do go out for whatever reason, they will hopefully reignite themselves if you get a flame out or something along those lines. Auto brakes, we check those again, make sure they are on RTO, which they are. Try not to run off the runway. Flight controls, we've checked. We saw that. Ground equipment are all clear. That's correct. Flaps are checked. We've got flaps in green here. We can see flaps 5, and that correlates to this being in flaps 5 as well. So we can see that the flaps are set and where we expect them to be. Stabilizer trim we have set. So that is where we get to up until the point where we get to the runway. And honestly, I have not had any drinks today, so I don't know why my taxiing is quite so rubbish. When do you arm the auto throttle? So, Jave, I tend to leave it. I know some will arm it now. Right? There's no harm in arming it now. As long as you haven't pressed the toga button, it's not going to do anything until you press toga. We've got LNAV and VNAV armed, but it's not doing anything at the moment because we've not told it to start and the autopilot's not on. If we press the toga button, you would get toga in these boxes, and the throttle would start doing something. So there's no harm in arming it now. I tend to wait till I get to the point where I'm moving on to the runway. That's just a personal preference. But I know some operators will arm it at the point where they've pushed back and they're ready to taxi. So head down here. Introduce a bit more speed. Yeah, and there's absolutely nothing wrong, Jay, with doing it earlier. I just know that the main reason I do it when I get down there is a couple of times I've accidentally knocked my toga button or something on my throttle, and the plane started hurtling off down a taxiway and things like that. And it's just through, my own operator error that I tend to just leave it until I get to the point where I'm going to go onto the runway. Cool. Okay, so we're coming up to holding point Alpha 4 here, I think it is. Yeah, Alpha 4. And onto the holding point for runway 06. So at this point, we now want to be doing our before takeoff checks. So engine start selectors, we've already turned them to continuous. we will just come around here. So again, we don't want to be over 10 knots ground. 10 knots ground speed. So we'll just do that and come round the corner here. And I'm just going to hold short of the runway for a second while we run through these checklists. You can do these as you're going onto the runway, but just so I can explain them, we will just hold short here, like so. The engine start selectors we have already checked. Once we are told that we are either line up and wait or cleared for takeoff, landing lights come on. Strobe lights go from steady to strobe and steady, so we flick them all the way up. Auto throttle at this point is when I would arm it, so we will arm the auto throttle now, and the light comes on to say that it's armed, and we get a indicator here to say that that is armed and that's active now as well. Green box tells you the most recent change, and you can see that's then disappeared as well. Weather radar then also needs to come on if it isn't already. And what I would do, I put on this side, I would put the weather radar on here so we can see that it says that there. On the first officer side, I usually have the terrain in there. So terrain would go on the officer side, weather radar on there. We don't want to turn that on too early because otherwise you're going to be whacking ground crew with x-rays and all sorts of other radiation and stuff. We then double check that the speed brakes are not armed. There is no, unlike the Airbus where you arm the spoilers or anything like that, there is none of that within the Boeing. So you just make sure that they are not armed. It is as far forwards as it can go. And we do a takeoff config test at this point. So what you should be able to do, put your feet on the brakes, throttle up to 50% on the N1, and you should get no beep. If you do that test, let's say we arm the speed brakes here, and we do the same. Interestingly, the speed brakes don't set it off. Let's, what can I do that would set it off? Let's do flaps up quickly. That's interesting. So I would have expected the speed brakes to set off that takeoff config warning. Just oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so they just needed to be fully extended. But if we now go into the takeoff config, you will see we're getting that beeping, that warning there to say, hey, your takeoff config is wrong. So we do that check as well to make sure that that is not right. If you do get that, check your flaps, check your auto brakes, check your spoilers are disarmed. Oh yes, auto brakes will do it as well. No sim sound. Oh, really? I didn't realize. Oh, I see why. Hold on. Right, there we go. You should have sim sound now. Let me just do that again for you so you can hear it. Let me know if that sim sound is too much. Sorry, I just realized that the sim audio was still set to 2020. Apologies. So if we do that now, there you go. You get the beeping, which you can see, obviously, then. Don't want to go into reverse thrust. There we go. So we can then see, yeah, so you get that beeping, that message which says, hey, your takeoff config is wrong. So that is everything with our pre-takeoff checklist. So we will now make our way onto the runway. At the same time, we need to turn our transponder on to TARA. That is now on. That's set to TARA, and we can see it says there that that is on now.
06.
And we press up here our traffic button. So that's now armed our traffic. And we can see that we've got some dots here on our MFD to tell us that the traffic radar is on, and we can see TFC showing there.
6.
For those of you that spotted where it says on 06 there, that is VRAS. It's an additional application that's not part of the standard PMDG 737 offering. I've got the VRAS application running, which gives you that information and audible alerts in my headphones. So takeoff then. So we line up, put the brakes on as we have here, and we're going to get up into the air. So we set thrust to 40%, and we check that is stable. Just wait for that to spool up. There we go. So we're about 40%, 45 there. And at this point, we hit the toga button and we verify that we should be seeing ARM, LNAV, and toga in our messages up here, in our FMA modes that we've got up here. And then we do the takeoff. So we're pushing forward slightly on the stick until we get to 80 knots. So we press our button there. There we go. So toga showing in there. LNAV and VNAV are armed. Ooh. Ups. And that is why, speed brake check, there we go, thank you very much. And that is why we have our takeoff config check there. Auto throttle had also disarmed. So we will rearm that. And we are going to try that again. So 40%. That's why we have our takeoff config check. And Malky. Press the button. Toga. There we go. Throttles are heading up. So gentle forward pressure on the yoke as we are taking off. Airspeed alive, as he says. Maintaining that center line as best we can at 80 knots. We center the yoke back into its normal point, and then we are waiting for V1 and rotate. V1 and rotate, and then it's a gentle back pressure up. We got positive rate of climb, so our gears come up, and then we are just following that flight director. So following that cross, making sure that it is in the center, and then as soon as you want, you can enable the autopilot. 400 feet minimum. It needs to be above 400 feet to enable it. But in this instance, I am just going to get it enabled. So CMD-A, oops, wrong button. CMD-A is the one you would press if you are, if the master is the captain on the left-hand side flying. If it was the first officer doing the flying, CMD-B is the one you would enable. But in this case, CMD-A. So we've switched that on. So that is now following LNAV and VNAV. We now need to put our flaps up. So we will put them up. We are going through our flaps up speed. You can see there, and we're accelerating up to our climb speed. We've got our altitude set to 6,000. We are following the VNAV path. So if we have a look here, at our legs, you can see we've got some altitude constraints, so it's making sure that we are going to be achieving that. So at GAL 30, flight level 060 is where we need to be, and we need to be above 5,000 at GAL 35. So we are increasing our altitude up to that level. Our flaps are now up. We can set our auto brakes back to off now. And we can turn off our taxi lights and our runway lights. Landing lights stay on for the moment. I tend to leave... why are caution lights on? Or is that the sun? Which ones? I don't see any. Are you if you're talking about those, I think it was probably just the sun Dougal there. If you're talking about the fire warning and the master caution lights. So taxi lights, runway lights come off. I leave the engine start selectors in continuous until we get to 10,000 feet. They tend to be, you can turn them off pretty much straight away, but I tend to leave them just to 10,000 feet. So we're coming up to 6,000 now. I'm going to follow the SID just for reference here, basically. But yeah, I mean, generally, if you haven't got ATC going or anything like that, sun in Scotland is a thing, you know. Is it, Malky? I didn't think it was. Then again, hold on, I live in Sheffield, which isn't much better, let's be honest. So we are following our magenta line here, coming up to Gal 30. We're above 5,000 feet. We're at 6,000. So until we get to Gossam, which is in what, another 20, is that 25, 30 miles or so, we're going to be staying at flight level 060, which is fine. Flaps are up. Obviously, if you're not on ATC or anything like that, you can just go straight on up. If you wanted to do that, you set your flight level and you can either press your flight level, your level change button, or just press altitude intervene and it will climb at the rate that you have set in your FMC, which is in here in the climb section. So under 10,000 feet, it will climb to 250 knots. Above that, 320 before the transition, and then decimal 8 is our climb that we have set up to flight level 370. So we've hit 6,000 now. We've got altitude constraints in the FMC, as we've talked about. So there is no harm in setting this higher. It's not going to do anything unless you press a button to tell it to, or it gets to the point where the FMC is happy to let it go up further in altitude. So we know we're going to go up to flight level 370 now. So we'll set 370. As I say, if we want to start that now, your altitude intervene button over here, press that, and that will start climbing at the rate that we've got set in the FMC. Level change, if we press that, it will start climbing in the speed that you've got set in the FMC here. But we'll just leave it as we come along here, and once we get past Cumbo, we get to Gozam, and then we'll start increasing our altitude. So that is that. The after takeoff checklist would then be run, probably a little bit earlier than I have, but I was obviously just explaining a few other things. But engine bleeds, after takeoff checklist, just to confirm. So we check our engine bleeds are on and all correct. Packs are on auto, which they are. Landing gear is up and off. So in the 737, you've got 3 settings. You've got down, you've got up, and you've got off. Now I don't think I'm not going to be able to do this because I've got the binding set wrong in my Bravo at the moment. So normally you would switch this down into the middle of off. My autopilot sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Why? I would need a little bit more detail on that in terms of what plane you're flying and everything like that. It's a bit hard to give you an answer to that whilst not knowing too much, and I'm not seeing your screen, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to help too much with that at the moment, I'm afraid. Airbus A320. With a plane that complex, there could be a multitude of different things. If you're not in climb mode, if you haven't got your McDo set up correctly, it's very hard to tell you why it's not working at the moment. Malky says you would likely be cleared to a higher altitude by now. Yes, that is very true. Yeah, that is very true. It's very rare that you will be kept at flight level 060 on the full SID. That doesn't happen very often. And in fact, let's go and do it. So let's say we've got a call from ATC. Flight level 370 has been approved all the way up, or maybe 14,000, something like that. Set your altitude, and we hit the altitude intervene button. So we press that, and we can now see throttles are going up. Auto throttle is pushing those engines up. Flight level 06 or flight level 6,000 flight level 6,000. 6,000 feet is starting to increase. We're going up. Our transition level in Scotland, coming out of Edinburgh, is 6,000 feet. So at this point, we can now see that this has gone into yellow, indicating that we need to move over to our standard barometric pressure. So we hit this button up here, which is standard. So we press that, and that has now taken us back to our standard pressure. We're under 10,000 feet, so that the FMC and the auto throttle is keeping us at 250, but it has put our climb N1 rating up to that 90% that's set on climb 1, and we are heading on up to flight level 370. When we get to 10,000 feet, we do a couple more bits of our checklist at 10,000 feet. So we've done our standard pressure already. We've got a Gibbo in the chat. Good afternoon. No, good morning, Gibbo. It's 11 o'clock. Good morning. Great to have the 738 back. Been flying it constantly since release. Going to give the A340 a go for the first time now. What's the worst that can happen? Yes, as Malky says, you could lose an engine on approach. That would be a bad thing to happen. Good luck with the A340. I have not yet seen or played around with that one. Okay, we've hit 10,000 feet. You will have noticed as we hit 10,000 feet, the nose dropped ever so slightly, and that is because we've now hit 10,000 feet. So we are now moving to our climb speed above 10,000 feet, which, if we have a look back here again, was 320, and that's why it's in the magenta here. So we are below our transition altitude where we move into Mach numbers. So it's now aiming for 320. So it's dropped the nose slightly. And our climb rate has slowed significantly while it gets us back, gets us to the speed that we need to. We are now getting up to that point, and you will now see that it's going to pitch. We are in VNAV speed, so it's going to maintain this speed, and it will pitch the plane to the angle that it needs to maintain that 320 knots at this thrust rate, so that 93.8 or so percent thrust that is set in our, or 94.1 actually is our climb 1 rating. So oh, that seems to be varying. Okay, whatever the climb 1, let's just have a look here actually and see what it was. Can I find out what the setting was? How do I do that from here? N1 limits. Climb 96.6 is what it's aiming for there. So 96.6 on the throttle on the N1, and it will pitch at whatever rate it needs to maintain that 320 knots. So we're on our way up. We are now heading down to Elbus, and we are getting up into cruise. And I'll tell you what, it looks pretty, doesn't it? That MSFS audio might be a bit loud from the outside. I'm just going to turn that down for you. So apologies if I blew any of your ears out there. Head back into... Oh, hello. No, that's definitely the wrong button. We'll head back into the cockpit there. Okay, so we are on the climb. We've done our changes at transition. We've done our changes at 10,000 feet. Landing lights have all come off. We can let the passengers out now as well, so we'll put that into auto. That will release the passengers. And actually, I got to 10,000 feet, turn off those engine start selectors as well. So that is now back to off. We don't need them on anymore until we start the descent. And then that is pretty much it until we need to start doing our descent planning. So what I will do now is go into a little bit of details about what we do in the cruise and so on. while we climb up to cruise. Some of the standard procedures that would happen in the cruise. And we can, if we just have a quick look here, if you press the progress button, it will tell us a number of different bits of information here. So top of climb, we've got 83 nautical miles, 11:25 Zulu. So another, what's that? 12 minutes or so. We will get up to the top of our climb. We can see here when we get to Gatwick, we're going to have 3.6 tons of fuel left. So that, as I say, that message that you get at the very beginning where it says you've got insufficient fuel is wrong. I believe that is how the FMC works. I've not gone into too much detail on why it does that when you're on the ground before you've started your engines and everything like that. And once you put all your detail in there. But the fuel is where we need to where we expect it to be in terms of landing. Now, that's one of the things that pilots will do in the cruise. So as they are on a short flight, you don't get a huge amount of time to do this, but on a longer haul flight, you will be checking as you go through the cruise that your plane is operating in the way that your flight plan has expected. So you can see here at the moment we're coming up to Navso. So we're about 10 miles at the moment from Navso, this waypoint here. And what you will notice here in our flight plan, we have at all of our different waypoints estimated fuel on board and what we are expected to have burnt in terms of fuel. So if we have a look here at Navso, we can see here that we're expecting to have 5.2 tons and have burnt 1.5 tons. So as we get to Navso, what the pilots and first officers will be doing is checking our actual fuel. So at Navso, we're going to have 5.1 here. It says in the fuel tank, we've got 5.2 at the moment. And as we hit Navso, it's expecting us to have 5.1, which is 100 kilos less than what our flight planner said. Now, why might that be? You need to have a think about that. Are we burning fuel? My banner isn't updating. No, it's not, is it? Let's just see if I can fix that. Let's try this button. No, that's not working. No, that's not working. I don't know why that's not updating. I'll have to look at that afterwards. Right. So yes, we would be checking. So we've just gone over Navso. 5.1 tons we had in there. 5.2 is what we were expecting on our flight plan. Not a massive discrepancy, but it is slightly more fuel than what we were expecting to have burnt. So we need to think about why we've why that's a situation, why that potentially has occurred. Now, we stayed for quite a period of time at 6,000 feet. Our fuel burn isn't going to be particularly efficient there. As Malky said, we would have likely have expected that we would have got an altitude increase before that. That said, the flight plan is expecting us to have been at the altitude. So at I'm just having a look here. So Gotham on Delta, GAL 35. Yeah, so actually, we can see what it is. If I bring back Navigraph, what we can see here is at GAL 35, our flight level, which is this number here, at GAL 30, GAL 35, it was expecting us to be at 10,000 feet, 13,000 feet by there. Flight level 20 at that point. So it was expecting us to have been not followed the SID and gone up higher. So our fuel burn has been slightly less efficient So I suspect that is what it is. But at the same point, we're checking this. We're checking these numbers, and this will happen all the way through to make sure that our fuel burn is right, that our engines aren't burning more fuel than we expect or anything like that. We're checking a lot of this information as we're going through. At the same time, during cruise, the captain, the first officer are sitting there talking about alternatives. Okay, we have an engine out right now. What are we going to do? Where are we going? Where's the next best airport? Obviously, we've got one alternate listed on here of Manchester, but if we get an engine out at 20 miles to Gatwick or 50 miles to Gatwick, it's unlikely that we'd probably want to go to that point and turn around and go back to Manchester. If we had a passenger who was ill or something like that, we're not necessarily going to want to turn around and go back to Manchester at 40 miles from Gatwick. We'd just carry on. So lots of things that get taken into account in terms of that, and the conversations that are ongoing between the captain, between the first officer about the progress of the flight. They're not just sitting there having a cup of tea and playing, games on their phone or anything like that. They're constantly talking about that, and I tend to try and do the same. I check that our fuel burn is about right. We got to Bebney now. We've just passed Bebney, heading to DCS. We crossed Bebney with 5. Looking at our flight plan here, it expected 5.1 at Bebney, so we're maintaining that the discrepancy that we had there. So we were supposed to cross Navso with 5.2. We crossed it with 5.1. Bebney, we've crossed it with 5. We should have had 5.1. So at the moment, I'm not too worried. Don't seem to be, that discrepancy isn't increasing. It's 100 kilos light. And we've got enough in reserves there that I'm not worried about that 100 kilos. So coming up to flight level 320 now. I'll just cross flight level 320. We're now in that transition or above our transition altitude here. So if we have a quick look here at our climb, you can now see that this has changed into the magenta. So its target speed is now 0.8 versus the 320, 319 that it was. So it's now changed over to there. We got 370 setting set on our MCP, and that's where we're heading up to. And we got 21 miles till we get up there. 11:23 Zulu. It's expecting us to reach our top of climb. So that is all good. So top of climb and top of descent aren't massively far away from each other. This is only a short flight. So we will need to start thinking about our top of descent and our descent planning fairly swiftly on this one. It's long enough that we don't necessarily have to think about it before we take off. It's not a Manchester to Dublin where your airtime's 40 minutes, but it's still a relatively short flight. So we'll get to top of climb, and then we'll start going through preparations for approach and our descent calculations and so on. And I've just realised my banner's completely gone wonky now, hasn't it? I might just take it off. I'll try one more time to fix it. And we'll see if I can get that to work. Try one more time. Yeah, okay. One. Oh, there we go. It's in a wrong colour, but that'll do. Seems to be a little bit better now. All right, we'll leave that in, see what happens. So where are we? We're coming up to just coming up to 10 miles to top climb. Also, once you've taken off, obviously over 10,000 feet, you can turn the terrain off on the first officer's side. I tend to always forget to do it, but sort of fairly standard policy is you don't need to be wearing out that bit of equipment. Turn the terrain off. You're not going to have any major issues above 10,000 feet, unless you're in the Alps or something along those lines, and you might have some very high mountains. Yes, the graphics are incredibly good, Bents. I've got a pretty decent spec machine. I've got a 9800 X3D and a 7900 XTX graphics card, so I'm able to run this. This is pretty much everything on ultra, pretty much maxed out settings, and I'm getting 75 to 80 frames a second at the moment. So I'm pretty happy with where I am with that. So yeah, pretty good graphics. Jave, are you familiar with the bank angle button above the heading select? Yes. So that's a really good point, and it's something I always forget. So once you get above flight level 30, you should be changing this to a lower bank angle speed. I always forget about this. I never do it. So the PMDG set to 30 as standard. You should, depending, again, this is slightly operator dependent, but depending on, as I say, depending on the operator, you've got it here in 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 degrees. It's always set to 30 as standard in the PMDG. Above flight level 30, you should be dropping it down to 20 or maybe even 15. It just reduces the maximum bank that the plane is going to do, and because you're in such thin air, a 30-degree bank, probably a little bit too much, really. So you should be dropping this down. It's something I always forget. Never ever touch it. But in the real world ops, they would drop this down to either 20, or I think there are some operators that drop it down to 15. But 20 above flight level 30 is your safe number as far as I understand. And then when you get back down below that, you can then increase it back up to 25 or 30. Really good point there, Joe. Thank you for bringing that one up. But yeah, I always forget it. I've never had a problem with it being set to 30 all the way through. But yeah, you should change it. But yeah, it's something I'm very, very bad at remembering. So we're up at flight level 30 now, which is 370, which is great. Top of descent, we've got 115 miles to go to our top of descent, 11:43 Zulu. It is expecting us, so just under 20 minutes there, I think that is, isn't it, to top of descent. So we need to start thinking about our descent planning. So with that, we want to have a look at our Navigraph and our plan and see exactly what we've got. Now, at the moment, our top of descent is calculated on the fact that on our flight plan and whatever is in our flight plan, and we've not put in our arrival yet. So you can see at the moment here what we've got is it takes us up to Disset, which is the end of our flight plan, and then effectively our next stop is EGKK. So it's calculating it based on, I'm going from Disset, I'm going to go straight to EGKK, straight to Gatwick, which isn't obviously realistic. So at this point, we want to start looking at putting in our arrival information. So we can obviously look at getting the ATIS. Now, one really cool feature. Question from Jave. I had a problem with it when I was in heading mode and it was set to 10. The controller gave me a heading to capture in the ILS, but could not make it because of the small bank angle. Yes, so 25-30 is standard under flight level 30. So they are expecting you to do a 25 to 30 degree bank angle when they give you turns. So if you've got it set to less than that, then you're not going to make those turns. They might give them to you too late to actually make that. So yeah, under flight level 30, 25-30 degrees of bank is pretty standard among operators. As I say, I tend to just leave it on 30 all the time. So yeah, we need to set in our arrival now. So we're coming into EGKK, arrival here, and we want to pick out our star and our approach. So looking at this, we need to get an ATIS. New feature within the 737 2024. If we press this menu button here, we've got this D-Link, downlink button here. And if we click on this, we can actually go and use Hoppy integration to talk to ATC. So we can log on and do ACARS messages and everything like that. You can also get your weather information. So if we want to get an ATIS, we can say, okay, I need an ATIS, please, for Gatwick. And you can choose your source here. So you've got VATSIM, you've got IVAO, you've got PMDG's data, wherever they get that from. In this instance, I'm just going to use VATSIM. You can also tell it to auto update. So anytime the ATIS changes, it will ping you automatically with a message. I'm not going to switch that on for the moment. I'm just going to press send, and we're going to request an ATIS. So I don't know actually if let's have a quick check here and see if Gatwick is online. Gatwick is online. There we go. So we got a bing bong there from the plane. And if we go back here, you can now see we've got an ATS message with an option to view it. So if we view this, so Gatwick is online on VATSIM, so we've got an ATIS from them. Gatwick information, time 10:50 Zulu, runway in use 08 right, ILS approach to be expected. And then we've got our winds there at 040, 10 knots with a variable 010 variable to 100. So bit of a blustery direction on the wind there, but the standard winds are 040 at 10 knots. So runway 08 right is what we're expecting. So we go back to our arrival. We press the arrival button here. So we've been told ILS or 08 right. So we will click on that. And our filed arrival. Yes, CPDLC is now working. So in here, in the menu, in the D-Link, you can go to ATC. You can log on to whichever status. But yes, CPDLC is now working in the 737 on 2024, which is absolutely fantastic. So back to here, into our arrivals. We've selected ILS 08 right. We have filed for the DISIT 1 Golf arrival. So we are going to choose that. So that's the DISIT 1 Golf arrival, ILS 08. The transition here, he says, just checking, is likely to be Willow. So we will choose Willow for the moment. And that is everything. Now, what we can do at this point, before we execute it, we can go into the legs. We can scroll down here. Now, with Airbuses, you obviously get them in a slightly different color, in an orange. Where there's a change here, you can see they've been highlighted with this sort of gray highlight. So these are the changes that we are making. So we've got to DISIT. Then we can see our next waypoint then after DISIT is Kidley. Followed by Mid, Holly, Mid, Tufos is in there. Yep, Holly, then Willow, then the center fix for 08. And the D103E. So that all matches up with what Navigraph is showing me. And in fact, I'll just quickly show you on here. If we select ILS runway 08, and if we go back to the map, so you can see here, this is the approach that we've got in here. Mid, Tufos, Holly, Willow, DE103, which all then matches what we've got in here. DE103, center fix for 08 right, final fix, and then runway 08 right. So that is all in there as we would expect it to be, matches up with our charts. So at this point, we can now execute that. So that's good. At this point, if we go back into program, we can now see top of descent 52 miles, 11:40. So it's actually changed that. We're starting our descent a little bit earlier because it was 11:43. So because we've got some altitude constraints we've added in here, DISIT, it's set a hard level of flight level 200 now because we're entering that DISIT 1 Golf approach. It's now saying that we need to descend a little bit earlier. So we've now got that put in. We also need to do our performance calculation for coming in to the runway. Very, very simple on that. It's got the speeds in there based on what your weight is going to be and everything like that. So flaps 30 and 40 are generally your standard. Flaps 40 will obviously give you that slow speed. Flaps 30, a little bit easier in heavy winds. So there's a bit of a trade-off. Whatever you decide is up to you. In this instance, I'm going to use a flaps 40 landing. I tend to use flaps 30 quite a lot, especially if it's windy, because it makes it a little easier to fly coming in on a heavy windy approach. So that is the arrival information put in and our speed information put in. Top of descent. We also need to look at putting in our other landing data. So if we have another quick look at Navigraph here, we want to have a look at our charts for our arrival. So we've got all of our charts here. We would have normally briefed these coming in so we can see where our constraints are and things like that and what the actual approach is. Coming in then to the ILS, we need to have a look at our localizer and our final approach course. So we want to take that information and we want to put our final approach course in. So in this instance, it's 077. 077. And we do that on the other side as well. So they both need to be set. So we put in our final approach course into here. We also then need to put in our ILS frequencies on both sides. So this is our active frequency. This is our standby frequency. This is all done manually. It's not automatic like it is in the 777 or the A320s. To do this, standard option here is a VOR. So you just need to change this. So the mode here on these arrows, so you need to change this to it says ILS. And you can't see that. I've just realized. Sorry. So active on the top here, standby on the bottom, and its standard setting is a VOR. So you just want to change the mode so it says ILS, and then we need to put in our ILS frequency, which is 110.9. 0.9, and you do exactly the same on the one over here on the far side on your other nav radio. So ILS 110.9, and then we flick them over. So that's 110.9, 110.9 on here. You can do a number of things on this little panel here, this Collins panel here. This all relates to our HUD. I'm not going to go into the HUD. I'm not going to use the HUD today, so I'm not going to go into those details, but there is a number of settings you do here on the HUD. If people are interested in the HUD, I just realized you couldn't see the HUD because I had Navigraph still on the screen. I don't stream professionally, so bear with me, folks. Yeah, so there's the HUD. I'm not going to go into the details of the HUD or anything like that today. If you do want me to, I can. But yeah, your basic settings here are just making sure that your ILSs are in and your final approach course is all in. And what you should then get is 110.9, 077 up here. We aren't getting any DME at the moment. We're not getting any distance because we're too far away from it. You will also get it on this side. If there is a mismatch or anything like that, then these will be in a different color. These will appear in yellow. If something's wrong, they will change to yellow, I believe, and tell you that it's wrong. I seem to be getting lots of bongs, and I don't know why I'm getting lots of bongs. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I seem to be getting bongs. No idea why I'm getting bongs. Anyway, so that's what we need to do. We then need to also double check our pressurization. So we know the landing altitude is 200. That hasn't changed. Nothing's changed about that. So that's still set correctly. We then need to check that our landing data is in. So our speeds and VREF are all in. And we can see there that the VREF is in 40, 136, which is what we put in on here. 40, 136, 40, 136. Auto brake. We need to set to whatever we want that set to. I'm going to choose auto brake 3. You can corroborate all of this obviously with your performance tool, which I haven't done, but this obviously doesn't really affect anything. You've got your settings in here, but you can check that you've got the right distance. So we know that we're landing runway 08 right. We want to import the aircraft details. So that's our expected weight at the time that we will be landing. Standard option is reverser config no credit. So we want to check if we get down there and our reversers don't work, we want to know that we can still stop. So we leave that as no credit. Auto brakes 3 is fairly standard. Air conditioning is going to be on. Anti-ice we're not going to need, so we leave that as off. And we import the weather. 040 at 12, so it's slightly different from the ATIS that we got, which was 040 at 10, but not too much of an issue. And our hectopascals are 1027. We calculate that and we can see we're going to stop almost halfway down the runway, so that is fine. It says 146. We've got 136 in there with a flaps 40. That was flaps 30. If I choose flaps 40, what have we got? 139, so it's 1 out. I'm not too worried about that. Now, we have this nice little message here, reset MCP altitude. It gives us a little reminder here. We're 3.4 miles from our top of descent, so we need to reset our MCP altitude. So it gives us this little reminder. So I'm going to just start throwing that down I'll just throw it down to an altitude at the moment. We'll say 17,000. And what that will do is, because we're in VNAV, when we hit that top of descent marker, we will now start descending. So the throttles will start coming back. There we go. We now get this little gauge here on the side, which I'll go into details on that in a minute. It says drag required, and we are starting to slow down. So it's pushing the nose down. Throttles are coming back. This is our vertical profile. So this is showing us our required navigation performance based on the information that we've put in, plus our actual navigation performance. So how accurate are we in terms of the altitude data that we've got based on our IRSs, on our GPSs? So we're at 158 there. We need 400. So we've got are required. There's no GPS jamming going on or anything like that. So that's all good. And so our VNAV speed is trying to follow the speed at this point. It's just changed to path, and I'll go into the details on this in a moment. But it is now trying to maintain. Okay, it's flicked back to speed at the moment. So it's flicking between the two because it's got a speed set in here. So if we go into our descent, we can see we've got a speed of 0.8 set. Keeps asking me for a bit of drag. So I'm going to just add in some drag here. Put our spoilers out a little bit. And in here we can see that we're a little bit high in terms of our vertical deviation. We're now a little bit low. VNav, we've got two methods of descending on VNav. You've got VNav path, which is the path that the FMC has worked out is optimum for descending down into, based on all the constraints that we've got and everything. So it knows that we need to be at flight level 20 by DISIT. It's worked out an optimum path for doing that based on the speed that we want to travel. I'm just going to put the speed brakes in a bit. So when it's in VNav path, it will try and maintain that path. What it also needs to do is obviously maintain the speed that it's got to. If it can't do that, and it requested drag there previously, if it can't do that, then it will change to VNav speed, because it can't maintain the path. So all I'm going to focus on is trying to maintain the speed. So that's your two different descent methodologies there. At the moment we're in path, we're under the speed that we need to be. You can see we're a little bit off, but it's still maintaining it. We're only 150 feet off the path, so I'm not too worried about that. So we're coming in, we're descending, and it's, as we're coming in to descend, it's about maintaining the visuals on what you're doing. How are we on the path that we're coming down? Have ATC cleared us down to where we need to be, and things like that. So descent management and power management is quite an important thing in here. So we've not got our speed brakes out now. And so it's actually, because it's trying to maintain that path, and it's not doing a fantastic job of it. We're 250 feet out. It's working on it. We're a little bit low, but it's bringing it back now. So it's identified that we're a little bit low. So it's just trying to find that right point, and we're a little bit slow as well, just because it's trying to maintain that path rather than worrying about the speed. The path is the priority. I'm still getting bongs. I don't know where the bongs are coming from. Can you guys hear the bongs? Because I'm hearing bongs, but I don't know why I'm hearing bongs. That's very strange. So it's got it back now. We're within 100 feet of the glide path that we're supposed to be coming back down to. You can now see the speeds increasing a little bit. So it will work and to balance out. Yeah, you just heard bongs, Malky. Yeah, I don't know where those bongs are coming from or what's causing them. Very strange. As I say, this is only my third flight in 2024 so far. So we'll have to I'll have to do some investigation on why I'm getting bongs. So here we go. We're now. It's now seems to have sorted itself out. It was a little bit up and down at first, but we're now pretty much on our path, within 40 feet of our path. The speed's there or thereabouts and about right. So we're coming down here into the next waypoint, which is Peppel, and we just passed Peppel and Disset. So we need to be at flight level 200. Or flight level, 20,000 feet basically at Disset. So we're coming in here, and it's doing its best to maintain us on that path. I know that there are a lot of pilots and a lot of operators who will go into V-speed and use this green indicator here into VS mode, and use the green indicator to get them to where they need to be at the right times, and do it all much manually and not rely on the VNav profile. That is also fine. Bongs, that can't be that important. You're not stalling and falling out. Exactly. They're not important bongs. They're just random bongs. So there are operators who will say, go into VS, get to where you need to be at the right point. VNav makes your life a bit easier as long as you're keeping an eye on it. It should do what it says. I've never had really a problem with it doing it in the PMDG. I'm just going to drop us down a little bit more so that it keeps descending down. In fact, no, I'm not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something actually. So let's say we've been cleared down to 17,000 here. and we're coming down. We're on path. We've got a constraint here of flight level 20 at Disset, and we are getting to Disset just now. Move that in a little bit, and we are basically bang on. So we're bang on the money here, and we're going to keep going down. And actually, I'm going to say we are cleared to 18, and we've been cleared to flight level 180 as we're coming in here. What will happen is, let's say, for example, we've got a plane beneath us, we've got someone else going into another airport, and we're going to be delayed coming into our next descent. So we've got this path set up at the moment. Kidley is our next one, and we need to be at flight level 150. Now, there may be a reason why we're kept high. Let's say ATC have spotted that there's a plane underneath us. They don't want us to descend. What will happen is, when we get to that altitude, so when we get to flight level 180, and we'll get there in a minute or two, the plane will then start to try and manage the issue. So we've got 1,000 to go. That's what that beat was for. The plane will start to manage the issue of we're not descending on the path that it's expecting to. There are two forms of energy, or effectively three forms of energy when you're descending. You've got kinetic energy, you've got potential energy, and chemical energy. Your kinetic energy is your speed. That's how fast you're going. Your potential energy is your height. And if you start to get off your path, effectively you've got too much potential energy. The plane is expecting you to be going down, but it's not. You're not going down. So you've got to lose that altitude somehow. There's only two ways to lose altitude: go down faster, or take a longer distance to get to where you need to. So you can now see we're not descending. It's at 1800. Our path is going off, and here the plane is now trying to compensate for this. Okay, I can't descend, the plane said. You've told me I've got to stay at 18,000 feet, right? Flight level 180. But I know that I need to be going down. I need to be at flight level 150 by Kidley, which is in 10 miles. How am I going to alleviate this issue that I've got? Because I need to go down, and the only way I can go down is to go down really quickly. I need to delay this, and it is slowly bringing this speed back, and it will bring it back right back to its slowest possible point, so its slowest clean speed, to try and mitigate this. So we've now been cleared down. I'm just going to throw this down to 3,000 feet, which is the start of the ILS. So we've now been cleared down, and I'm just going to hit the altitude intervene button. There we go. So now we've been cleared down, so the plane starts descending. It's now telling me you need drag. We've got to be at 1,500, flight level 150 by Kidley. It's now increasing the speed because it knows that we need to get down quick. We're not going to do this, but we were delayed by ATC, so we're not too worried by that. They've obviously got that in account. The FMC has now set the speed back to where it should. It's still telling me that I need some drag to get myself back onto path. We are 1,400 feet, but you can see it's working. This VNAV, it's pushing it. Speed's coming up. It's pushed the nose down. We're going down at 4,350 feet a minute here. And it is actually working. We didn't get too far off the path here. So we're coming back within 500 feet of our path, 300 feet. It's now bringing us back up. It's raising that nose back up, slowing that down. And actually, you know what? That VNAV's done a fantastic job there. I didn't need to intervene at all. I didn't add any drag in there. We're still that little bit high, so we're at 15.3 here, just while it sorts itself out. But we gave it a really hard task there. We said, you're 1,800 feet higher than you need to be, you've got to be here. So we were 100 and what? We just crossed Kidley there, and we were 60 feet off it. Pretty good, really. You can do all of this manually, so you can put it into V speed, and you can set your speeds and control it all manually, but you don't necessarily need to. Now, the other factor that you need to take into account is the approaches that you are doing and the potential shortcuts that you might get. And I'm actually, for a second, just going to pause the sim so I can show you what I mean by that. So if we have a look here at Navigraph, there's a rather interesting approach here into Gatwick. And you see you've got some interesting flow back and forth here and some extra track miles. And you've got a constraint here at Willow of flight level 070. So that will be in your FMC. That's programmed in your FMC. And so it's expecting you to come down here and fly into Willow at flight level 070. And then carry on down with your descent in through the center fix and down onto the runway. However, a lot of the time, if Gatwick's not busy or we're looking at another potential airport, let's say coming into Dublin, you've got that point merge where you do that big curve round on Bagso. At that point, you might be given vectors. They might go, well, hold on a minute. There's absolutely no point me taking this plane all the way out to Holly and out to Willow when I've got nothing coming in. They're coming in from this side. Maybe we'll take them from Kidley direct to Centrefix 08. Now, our height at Centrefix 08, the final fix is 3,000. So it's not going to be... go back to here. So our Centrefix 08. So final fix, that's 3,000 here we need to be at. That's going to be, 3,500? There's hardly any distance between those two. So coming in here, I'm at Kidley at 15, flight level 150. If we suddenly get a direct down to here, then all of a sudden we're here at, let's say, 10,000 feet. I need to be at 3,000 feet by here. We haven't got these track miles. We've suddenly got too much potential energy because we're a lot higher than we need to be. So we then want to take that into account. Now, there are no flight restrictions. There are no level restrictions at Mid, at Tufos, at Holly, all of those. So a lot of this will come from knowledge as you're flying into different airports and things like that. But at this point, I'd be looking at this and going, well, there's every chance that I might get a direct, or I might get, they might cut out this curve and take me from Tufos to Centrefix 08. Now, if I'm at Tufos here and I'm expecting to be at flight level 070 by Willow, but they cut out Willow and take me from Tufos to Centrefix for 08, again, I'm still going to be too high. I'm probably going to be, if we go back into the plane very quickly, let's just have a look here. Tufos, it reckons I'm going to be at 7,900 feet. The distance there between Tufos and Centrefix, that's a lot to drop between 8,000 feet and 3,000 feet at Centrefix 08. So I would be taking that into account and thinking, well, hold on a minute. There's a possibility here that I'm going to need to be lower than this path. And at that point, I'd be thinking about, do I want to go into V-speed and do I want to drop down quicker? Do I want to get down into You know, as I say, on the charts, there's no restrictions. I can be as low as I want effectively here. I only had a restriction at Kidley. So I could drop down to 8,000 feet here and fly this whole thing and just be earlier. Do I want to increase my rate of descent? I'm only going down at 700 feet a minute at the moment to make all of those waypoints and the right altitudes at those waypoints. So it's something to think about. It's that descent management is quite an important thing. In this example, we're going to fly the full approach just so you guys can see what's going on. But there's something to think about there, and I'll probably do another session at some point on more details on that descent management. But as it is, we're coming in now. We're at flight level 130 pretty much. We are on the descent. Everything's looking good. We got our flaps in. We got our approach data in. We've got our courses all set in. We are set to an altitude of 3,000 feet. That's the start of the ILS. We're at 300 knots. Oh no, decimal 587. We haven't quite gone through the transition. Oh no, we have now. We've got 308 knots. So we're gone through the transition altitude. Yeah, sorry, that's about 22,000 feet, isn't it? So 380 knots. Just under flight level 130. So next key points then are as we get to 10,000 feet. And at that point, I never switched our landing lights off. At 10,000 feet on the takeoff, you should switch your landing lights off. Don't leave them on all the time. Only silly people do that. Oh dear, one of those days. Landing lights come off at 10,000 feet. When we get to 10,000 feet on the descent, the landing lights come back on. So we are going down. Pretty slow descent at the moment. Just again, it's following that path. In the max, you've got a really nice VSD screen which shows you the. I'll tell you what, that bong is happening when I am clicking my left mouse and moving my screen about. It's something to do with my left mouse configuration. I wonder if that's something to do with chase plane or something. I will look into that after the stream. So we are heading to mid at the moment. We are mid is our next waypoint. We're 25.6 miles from mid, just coming up to 10,000 feet now. And we are, 24 minutes from landing based on our approach. So we're coming in. Again, it's a pretty slow descent because we've got this long number of track miles as we do this weavy approach through Willow and Holly into Gatwick. So we will give it a second. What else can I take you through? We'll do a couple of. I didn't run through the official descent checklist, so we'll do that. At the top of descent, you would do your descent checklist. So that's your pressurization. We did check that. We checked that our landing altitude was in. We press our recall button, which is just pressing this. We've got no errors. If anything was wrong or weird or wonky, when you press that, it would be left on. And you can see on this side, you've got a selection of different systems. On the other side, over on the first officer's side, we go over and do the same on this side. There are a different set of systems. So you need to obviously check both when you press the recall. We've got no issues showing up, so that's good. Landing data are all in. We've got those VREFs and those minimums in. Approach briefing. We're going to fly the full approach and we're going to land. And altimeters. We have not yet set our altimeters. Now, our transition level for here is set by ATC. So we will call it 6,000 feet, the same as Edinburgh was. But you can in the Boeing, you can pre-select your QNH. So I'm just going to import the weather again and check it's not changed. So your hectopascals, your QNH 1027. So you can actually go and pre-select that, which I am just doing. So you just rotate the QNH dial, which is there, and you can see what it's done. It's put it in here. It's pre-selected it, 1027. Same on that side because we've got it set to do the same on both sides. We're getting to 10,000 feet now, so those landing lights come on. One thing I did miss at top of descent. We should be turning our engine start selectors onto continuous. I'm a little bit out of practice in flying this quite clearly, so apologies for that. But yes, at top of descent, you would turn your engine start selectors to continuous. Cool. So we got about 20 minutes or so to landing now. So we're going to put the passenger signs on to let the cabin crew know that we are coming in to land. Press the attending button if you want as well, just to let them know. So we're at 10,000 feet now. We're still all nicely on our path. You can see there we are bang smack on the path that the FMC needs us to be. So that's bringing us in. You can now see we've started to pick up DME information as well. So because of how this goes, because of how this approach works, you can see it's picking up the ILS here, which is actually running out this way here. Now we're going to skip this and come past it. So we'll see that our DME information, which we've got here, it'll get lower and lower, and then at the point where we pass it, it will start increasing out again, which is fine and which is fully expected as we do the full approach into Gatwick. So the plane is doing a really good job here of managing the speed. We've got under 250 knots by the point where we got to 10,000. It's now telling me drag is required, so it will pop up every now and again. Don't act on it straight away because it may come up. It's a little quirk of the 737. Basically, it will sort of instantly tell you, I'm off profile. Things are going the wrong way, but actually, it might be able to sort itself out and solve itself. So you saw it popped up very momentarily there, saying drag required, but it wasn't actually required because the plane sorted itself out on its own. So coming in then again as you approach. Probably want to put terrain on. We know Gatwick's pretty flat, so it's not too much of an issue. But terrain on the first officer's side, legs on the first officer's side. Legs, we just want to double check. So we've got our go around procedure in there. So climb to 2000 on a heading of 077, and then it's vectors after that is the go around procedure here at Gatwick. So that's all in there and set up. You would have checked that as you were doing your approach, but I didn't because I forgot. So we've just got over mid, so we are now going to head down to Two Falls and then Holly and Willow. So as we come in then, we will let the plane do its thing. So Two Falls, it's expecting us to be at flight level 079. And we are pretty much spot on there. So there's 0796. We've just hit Two Falls, so yeah, we're at 7 flight level 079, which is great. And then we are going to come under transition altitude there. So we move into feet now. So by Holly, we're going to be at 5,751 feet. So at this point, I'm going to change from standard into our pre-selected altitude. Now you can see, because of the change in pressure there, it's actually changed our altitude quite considerably there. So now the plane is working. It's bringing back the thrust because it pointed the nose down to get us back onto path because it's in VNAV path. So the speed's gone up a bit. So it's brought the throttles back and it's slowing us down here, bringing that speed back to where it needs to be. We're getting back on path now, but we are now on the correct altimeter given to us from the ATIS, and we are now back on path. It's done a pretty good job there of getting us back onto that path that we need to be on, which is great. So we're coming in, we're going to come down to Holly and then spin round to Willow, at which point we need to be at now that's interesting. We've got a there is a just looking at Navigraph. That's something I didn't check properly. So if I bring up Navigraph here, we have a flight constraint here at Willow of flight level 070. But that's not actually in our FMC here. And it's not something I spotted. We've got to be below 220 knots, which it's got in there. But actually the chart says should be at flight level 070, but we've got 4,000 in here. So that's a very interesting one. You've just bought the 738 Malky. Oh, what a slip to make. You won't be disappointed, mate. It is a very, very good plane. So that's a very interesting one here. I've not seen this before. Willow, it's not got a constraint in there, and I will need to do some investigation into why that is. We're going to follow it at the moment as it is, just because otherwise we've got all sorts of fun stuff to deal with. But yeah, we are heading down on the path, and this is a key thing here of the plane will only do what you've told it to do. So I didn't read the chart properly. I didn't see, well, hold on a minute, Willow, we should be at flight level 070. That's not in my constraints on my FMC, so I should have been changing this. I used to have it back in 2004, flew it so much. Yeah, enjoy. It's a good plane. I'm very, very pleased with it. So we're coming in here. We are now effectively lower than we should be. We're coming up to Holly, which should have a max of 220 or below. And as we approach Holly, you can see here, this is now bringing us back. So you can see that it is working to be as efficient as possible. So the minute we hit Holly, it's going to bring us back here to 220. So it's slowly decreasing that speed. And we're coming up to Holly now, if I zoom in even further. So we're at 230 now, Holly. And again, you can do all of this manually. You can set the speed manually. You can set the altitude manually and the V speed and everything. And you can do it all yourself. But when you're single pilot, it's a lot of work. If you can set your FMC up correctly and let the plane do the majority of the work for you, you know it's programmed to do what you're expecting it to do. If you're not thrown any curveballs by ATC, let the plane, let it do its VNAV thing. Super. So we hit Holly there. We just got to Holly. We're at the right speed. We're at the altitude we've told it to be. We'll say that 4,000 is right in this instance, and I'll need to have a look at why the constraint's not in there on Willow. But we're now coming round for the approach. So at this point, I'm just going to have a quick look here. So we got 40 track miles based on our approach at the moment. To our end of descent as well is 40 miles, which is what you would expect as well. So that's good. So 40 miles coming in to Gatwick. So next things that we're going to look at then. So we've got a checklist just to make sure that we've got we're now going to be cleared for the ILS approach. So at this point, we're going to be checking that we're ready to start that ILS approach. So we want to check that our altimeters are right, 1027, which we've got. I have no idea what that bump was. Maybe that was the weather updating. Very strange, but we are coming in. So ILS approach, cleared for the ILS approach. Fantastic. Thank you, ATC. Altimeters, they are correct. They are where we need to be. Auto brakes are set. So we just double check them again. Auto brakes are set to 3. Landing lights are on, which they are. Engine start selectors are to continuous, which they are. We started that. ILS frequencies are set. 110.9, 110.9. And they are showing, and we're getting DME information as well as our final approach course. So at about 20 miles out, we're going to start looking at obviously starting to put our flaps in and things. At the moment, we've got 34 miles. We've got this decel point here as well. So as we start our approach in, that decel point will be when the computer starts looking to slow us down, and when we want to start putting flaps in. Now our flaps 1 through to 5 speeds, max speed that we can put those flaps down is 250 knots. So if we need to slow down for whatever reason, ATC comes along and says, hold on a minute, you've got a plane in front of you, you're going too quick, can you slow down please? You can throw your flaps out now. So up to 5, we are good. We're at 220 at the moment, so we can't do flaps 10 yet because you need to be at 210. And at that point, you'd start doing manual speeds and things if they needed you to be at 200 knots or whatever. But we will just follow the standard path at the moment. So we're at 220. We don't need to put our flaps down yet. We will do that at this decel point, which should be at about 20 miles out. So yeah, we're 29 miles. That's going to be just before 20 miles out. We'll start putting in some flaps. Okay, so we're coming in nicely. So we can see we've got the little localizer diamond sitting there waiting, ready for us. We haven't got the glide slope yet, so we don't arm the approach just yet. We need both for the arming to work correctly, you need both the localizer and the glide slope diamonds to come in and be shown on the PFD before that will work. And I'll show you that momentarily. So we're coming up to our decel point now. I'm going to change that to 10 miles. So as we come in, the plane will start to slow down, and then at this point I'm going to go straight in to probably flaps 5 just to get us slowing down. So we're coming up to 23 miles track miles to run. Coming up to that decel point as well. We're at the 3,000 feet that we've set on our altitude, so we are now level at 3,000 feet, which is the start of the ILS. Okay, we're just coming up to that decel point, so I'm going to bring in flaps 5. Now at this point, flaps are coming in, and the plane is now doing its decel, so we're starting to slow down here. into this decel. The flaps are coming down, so we're at flaps 2 there, and just getting up to flaps 5. And you can see the computer, the FMC, is controlling all of these speeds, so it's bringing us down to that flaps 5 speed. I've selected flaps 5. It is now dropping that flaps 5, dropping to that flaps 5 speed. That's coming down. We're about to make the turn in, and we will give it a sec for the to arm the approach. So there's our flaps 5 speed. We'll come back down. We're at 160 or so, 165. So we're making the turn now. As we come round here, and we should start to pick up the ILS fairly shortly. So we're now at 160. Again, normal scenarios. Hi Jessica, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Yes, this is the home of the naughtiest of gnomes. Good to see you. So yeah, as we're coming in here, you can see we're making this turn. We're coming onto the ILS now. We should get our ILS diamonds come in here. So we can see we've got the 2 diamonds just appearing here. So now if we hit approach, we can now see we've armed the localizer and the glide slope. That diamond wasn't appearing previously, that glide slope one. If we'd armed it before, armed the approach mode before that had appeared, it would have just armed the localizer, not the glide slope. So that's just something to bear in mind. So we're now coming in, we're making this turn. So these are armed. They're not active yet. Only when they go into green will they be active. So as we come round, we're doing this nice and slow, just so I've got plenty of time to talk to you guys. So we are now at 13 miles out. So at 10 miles out, I want to be looking to bring in the landing gear and some more flaps and slowing this down. There we go. So localizer has now come in. We've gone to a magenta diamond here. We can see that localizer has now been armed, and that we're still, the glide slope's still above us. So we're in a good position here. That's going to start coming down. In fact, we can just see it coming down now. And I'm actually now going to put in a bit more flaps. I'm going to go down to flaps 10. Just to, that doesn't change the speed between flaps 10 and flaps 5 particularly. It's a couple of knots, I think, in it, not too much at all. Okay, we are now established on the localizer, so I'm going to switch on our runway turnoff lights and our taxi lights. And at 8 miles out, you can do this whenever you want, really. You don't have to leave it till 8 miles out. I tend to do at 8 miles out, I put the gear down. Depending on the operators, I know some operators do that for fuel efficiency. Some do it at 10 miles. So it's up to you. I tend to leave it till about 8 miles out. And at that point, we will then go into our final configuration. So there we go. So VNAV out, just changed, and now glide slope has come in, and MCP speed has also changed. And you will notice here, whatever speed we are left at, it is now put it up into here. We are now controlling that speed, and we are on the glide slope. We are also now 8 miles out, so I'm going to put the gear down. So gear are coming down, and I am going to take us to flaps 30 and get us stable at flaps 30 as we start to slow down. So auto throttle's still doing its thing. We've set speed 164. I'm going to drop that down now. And in fact, I'm going to bring that down back to our final approach speed as we come in now. So auto throttles are doing the thing. We are on the glide slope. We are on the localizer. It's a bit cloudy. I can't see the runway yet, but we are there. What I didn't do was set the minimums, which is really bad of me. I am a bad pilot. Our minimums here are 396, so I'm going to really quickly do that. He says, Come on, 396. We'll get close to it. 390. That'll do. So 390 is our minimums there. We should have set that long time ago when we were setting up all of our final or our approach information, and I completely missed that one off the checklist. That's why you read the checklist properly, which I clearly didn't do. But anyway, minimums are 390. We are currently at 2000, so we're fine. We can now see the runway, so I've got no worries about that. What are we at? We are at 5 miles out, so I'm going to go flaps 40, final config. And we can see that's gone flaps 40, auto brakes are 3, flaps are green, gear are down with 3 green. We've got our thrust set in correctly. And now that it's we've changed the config, we've added in some more flaps. The plane's just working to keep itself on the right speed, on the right glide slope angle. And I generally will take hand controls at about 1,000 feet, something along those lines. If it's down to minimums or we can't see the runway, I'll leave it in for longer. But on a clear day like this with not much wind, I'll take it at about 1,000 feet. Do the final checks. Auto brakes are not, speed brakes are not armed, so we need to do that. So now speed brakes are armed, which is green. We got the gears, we got the flaps, we're at 1,000, so I am now going to take over the control of this, and I'm going to try and not stuff up the landing. Now, generally, we will, in the 7.3, in the 777, you leave the auto throttle on. In the 7.3, generally that will be taken off. You can leave it on if you want, but generally it will be taken off. So we will do that. So that is auto throttle off, and now I'm going to try and land this. Wish me luck.
Approaching 08 right.
Okay. I don't know if you heard that. The VRAS saying I was approaching 08 right. I'm not sure if I've got that set to come through. But we are coming through, so we are keeping on the glide slope. My eyes are constantly scanning between the PFD and whether we're on the glide slope and the localizer, the runway, the other instruments, the speed. We're all looking pretty good at the moment.
Minimums.
So that's minimums. So at that point, I call out landing. If I'm happy with it, I'm all stable, so I am landing. I'm going to carry on. We're a little bit high here, a little bit fast as well, so a bit of throttle off. And we got plenty of runway. It's quite a long runway here, so I'm aiming for a relatively smooth touchdown.
100.
We want to be 50 over the threshold. I don't know what that bump was.
50.
There we go.
30.
30, we start the flare. Reduce the throttle back. Bit too much of a flare there. Okay, not too bad. A little bit long, but we've got plenty of runway. Gently bring the nose down. Reverse thrust in. We're not going to make that turn off, so that's fine. So then 60 knots. Reverse thrusters off. Manual braking. And at this point, we can put the flaps up, put the speed brakes up. Add in a bit of thrust just to take us off the runway. It was a little bit long, but it was nice and soft, so that's good. And then we will come off the runway here. And here we are. Welcome everybody to Gatwick. And we will slow down. We will make sure we are off the runway. Now we've got a fun one here because there's a runway here, so we've got this middle bit. I'm going to say that we've been cleared to cross the runway and that there's nothing coming in, but generally you would end up stopping between the two stop bars there. But in this instance, I'm just going to cross this runway over. Say we've been cleared automatically to cross that, and we'll get over this other side and do the cleanup operations. So we've come across, we've left the runway now. And we will turn left onto here. Here's a funny one. I thought I had the Gatwick scenery installed, but it certainly doesn't appear like I do. Right, I'm just going to pause there for a second while, and we'll put the parking brakes on so I can run through the cleanup operations with you guys. So, cleanup after landing. Obviously, normally a lot of the first officer would be doing this while the captain or the pilot flying, other way around if it's the first officer flying, would handle all of these. But speed brake I've already put up, and flaps have gone up back into the 0 position, into the up position. Yes, at least with Gatwick you don't get dual runway ops. That's very true. Auto brakes at this point need to come to off, and then you want to get this APU fired up because you're going to need that fairly swiftly. So we'll start the APU. You've come off the runway, so landing lights can come off. Depending on the situation, again, the runway turn-off lights, you might need them, you might not. If it's daytime, switch them off. Engine start selectors can come to off as well. Down here, we can turn the weather radar off. Don't need that anymore, and we'll just be blasting people with radiation. We don't need the terrain visualization on anymore either. TCAS, your transponder, you can switch to TA only at this point. So switch that off from TARA. And at the same time, you also want to be switching off your flight directors. So you can switch those off like so. So they're now off. And we will come back to the rest of this in a minute. So we are now going to taxi and park up somewhere. Now, I don't have the scenery installed. I really did think I did, so I'm going to have to fix that. But we will go and see if we can find a parking stand somewhere. You're going to eat. No worries, Iceman. Thanks very much for joining. Appreciate that. So we will taxi now over and find a parking stand somewhere. I really did think I had Gatwick installed. Oh well, never mind. So we will take this first right. I'll see if I can go and park on something like 136, which should be to the right and to the right again. And we'll go from there. So yeah, Kilo is to the right. Okay, well, it's sort of looking relatively similar to actual Gatwick. Maybe I'll do 135. It's a bit of an easier turn. So this is right onto Kilo. And then you've got a set of stands here, which aren't really showing. But I will just plonk it on one here for ease. All right, so this is 136. There is supposed to be a stand here, but yeah, this is stock scenery. So we will just plonk it in here. Okay, so bring it up to stop point, which we will say is there. So we stop, parking brakes off. As you turn into stand, generally switch your taxi lights off because otherwise you blind the staff members that are all here. So those lights should all be off. By this point, you've started your APU, so you can now see it says APU generator is available, but it's off the bus. So we flick those on, and the plane is now running on the APU generator power. And at that point, you can kill the engines. So that's now your engines throttling down. You'll get some a master caution. You would expect that. You can see your N1s throttling down. Anti-collision light will come off, but only come off at the 30 seconds after the engines have been switched off. Yes, Malky, I usually have the freeware Gatwick. As I say, I thought I had it installed, but don't for whatever reason. But yes, anti-collision lights 30 seconds after the engine has been switched off. Strobes should have gone to steady after we came off the runway. I forgot about that one as well. I am clearly out of practice with this. I need to get some more practice in. Well, thank you for lurking, Cheska. I appreciate that. That's really nice. So, anti-collision lights have now come off. So we would now request the ground power and chocks from the ground crew. So chocks have been placed in, ground power is now connecting, and we will see in a second once they've connected it that the ground power light comes on, and we can now switch that on. So now gens are off the bus, APU is off the bus, so we are now working off ground power, and with that we can switch the APU off to save fuel. Probe heat can also come off. Now, generally, if we're leaving this in a turnaround state, we would leave the window heats on. If you're shutting it down properly, then window heats come off. We can let the passengers out now, so we'll switch those off. And that is pretty much it. The only other thing that you would normally do, and this is more just common courtesy than anything, is reset your MCP panel. So generally the first officer or whoever's not doing the taxiing and so on. In fact, it has to be the captain on the 7-3 because the tiller's on here. So the first officer will reset these. So set your course back to 100, set your IAS back to 100, course back to 0. And you can set your altitude back. As I say, I set it to 10,100. And your heading you can set back to... Why have I gone that way? I have no idea why I tried to go to 00 the long way round. There we go. So set those up. And that is then pretty much everything. You can then obviously go here. We can request some stairs. We can get the doors disarmed and get the door open. I did request the stairs. Yeah, stairs are arriving. Here come the stairs. Doors is opening up. And that's it, basically. You're now sort of... you can turn your transponder to standby as well. Why do we put the course and heading back to 000? The erratic sloth. Firstly, your name is fantastic. I love it. Generally, it's just out of courtesy. If this is your last leg of the day, if you're carrying on, you probably wouldn't. But let's say I'm a pilot. I've just finished a leg. I'm about to leave this aircraft, and I'm going to give it to the next pilot. They've got a sort of set state that they're expecting there in terms of course being 000. That it's just in a state where if you'd switch the plane on from cold and dark, that's the numbers that you would get. So it's just sort of more courtesy than anything for the next pilots. If you're staying on and you're doing multiple legs, no, you wouldn't change that. You'd leave it as they are until you set them up next time. Cheska, we didn't celebrate yesterday's one brother and his partner's family. So I got to get all the festivities with the bells and whistles today. Oh, well, fantastic. And enjoy your belated Christmas today. And you're getting told off. Oh, that's what 1-year-old nephews are for. You spoil them. I've got a nephew who's he's 10 now, or 12 now. And I spoil him rotten. So that's entirely what it's for. So no worries. Super. So there we go. We are now set. We are on the ground. Doors are open. Passengers are getting off. Our landing, 120 feet. It was a nice landing. It was a little bit late, but we knew we had a long runway. I said that as we were coming in, so I wasn't too fussed about it being too late. So I'm all right with that. I'm all right with that landing. A little bit to the side, as we can see, but not too bad. So all in all, that's us. It was a good flight. I would assume the course and heading would be set to the runway in use, which is likely to be the runway the next guy would use. Saves wearing the knobs out. Yeah, 100%. That's also very valid. I I've been told by operators of or pilots of operators that they tend to, if they're leaving the craft, they will set them back to the standard, because the runways might change in between taking off and landing. So they might have landed on 08 right, but if the winds change or something like that, they might be taking off the other way, or they might be, if you're in, I don't know, Stockholm Arlanda, you've got runways going different directions. It depends on where the plane's going as well. So generally, as I understand it, it's fairly standard procedure to set them back to normal if you are leaving the aircraft and not doing the next leg. So there we are, everybody. We have successfully got to Gatwick. We are parked up, and we made it down. The bar at the top still isn't working, so I'm going to have to work on that and fix that. It certainly gave up the ghost partway through. Don't know why it says we're at 36,000 feet. That's very not useful. I hope everyone's enjoyed that. It wasn't a perfect example, and I think that's quite an important thing to highlight. When none of us are professional pilots, none of us. I'm not a 737 pilot. I in no way an expert on this. I just spend too long reading manuals and learning how to use this thing. So I hope it's given you some ideas. It wasn't perfect. I'm not in any way pretending it will be. I will probably do a few more of these over the next week or so, going into a bit more details on things. I've got some free time before I head back to work. So yeah, I hope everyone's enjoyed it. If you've got questions, if you've got any thoughts or want me to cover anything specifically, head over to Two Tone Murphy's Discord. That's where I spend most of my time, and drop me a message on Discord, and I will happily go into details on anything else. But with that, I am going to say thank you very much, everybody. I am going to leave it there and end the stream, as I have some things to do this afternoon, and we're a little bit later than planned. Shock horror, one of my streams wasn't to the time that I was expecting it to be. That is not like me at all. Google wants a BA livery for this. Yes, I completely agree. It may not be real, but a BA livery would be lovely. Comair still operate them in the BA colours in South Africa. Oh, okay, that's very cool. That's very cool. Okay. Malky, see you later. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have fantastic Boxing Days, or Cheska in your case. I hope you have a great second Christmas day. Enjoy your celebrations. Enjoy the holiday period wherever you are. And I will catch you again soon on a stream. So thanks very much, everybody.